Hello, everyone, and welcome to this, our day 2 of our Soft and Life Skills Series Conference 2021. As I've watched and loved and seen everyone joining, saying welcome. You're from Jamaica, you're from Barbados, you're from Florida in the USA, Antigua and Barbuda. And it's been so lovely just seeing you guys join. I want you to keep saying where you're coming from. I see 47 persons in here so far. More are joining. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. And I love and I hope that you'll keep in tune to us tonight just as well. So we started off yesterday with an excellent conference. It was so amazing. We started off with learning about how it is that we perhaps might go from anxiety towards success, as we encapsulate around the theme, navigating life through these journeys, a pathway towards success. And then we looked at the unique idea to how it is that anxiety in this difficult time, how is it that we transcend that? How it is that we have to continue with dealing with that? And then we went, after getting that excellent introduction from Mr. Agent Theodore, we went to Miss LeCrystal Dernier, the idea about how it is that for every season, and we have to understand the journey that we're in, and how it is that where it is that it might be easy for us to look on other journeys or other person's path to success. There's a way that we have to identify our own unique identities, our own unique stories, and how we chart our way forward. As I see Olivia says hello from Trinidad, and I see a hello from Belize coming from Keela. We wrapped up that evening encapsulating that all together with an excellent working interactive session by Dr. Ty Richardson, who said, everyone, let us speak together. Let's hear your stories. Let's hear where in your journey you are and how it is that we can assist or give advice. It's a pleasure, therefore, to be back with you for day 2, for even more of our exciting and extremely beneficial conference. I'm hoping to have just the same amount of engagement, just the same amount of excitement in the chat. I'll be in there with you. I'll be there watching every other person and hoping that we have an exceptional and exciting evening. We're continuing it today with just as exemplary conversations. We're going to be hearing from 3 more presenters once more. We have a special guest speaker. That'll be a slight alteration on the original program 2 days ago. We have a special guest speaker, Mr. Junior Galette, who will be talking about his story of the power of relationships and network supercharged on his path to success, going up from Mr. Casey de la Pina, who will be telling us about how you go from selling sports sponsorships to youth development, that a young professional's path towards switching careers, which I think will be an exciting conversation. If you're in here so far, say Michelle from Trinidad, Miriam Duncan Sutton, and your friends are not in here, give them a nudge, tell them to join, send them the link, smile just as brightly as Stacy and Casey are smiling so far, and encourage them to come into our session. Ladies and gentlemen, once more, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you back. Now, just a matter of housekeeping, just as I allow everyone to have knowledge of how we're going to be conducting today's session. So once more, just a reminder that we have the speakers' permission to record this meeting, so it is being recorded. So there's a possibility that participants might appear on the recordings, and there's a possibility that we might archive to our YouTube channel and may use for promotional material. For today's presentations, we'll have in the format of 3 presentations with question and answers coming after each speaker. To facilitate that conversation and with some sense of organization order, we'll be asking that every single person is muted until then, up to the point in which you'll be invited during the Q&A session. Indicate via your question in the chat whether you want to send it privately in the chat, or if you wish to use the raise hand feature, I'll indicate when you are allowed to, and you may pose your question at that time. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening is going to be just as exciting because yesterday we started off this conference, this exceptional conference, dealing with this issue of how it is that the life's journeys take us here. I said yesterday, Miss Morris, that It was no accident for them to come here. It was going to be a journey of self-discovery, whether they knew it or not. It was the moment in which the conversation said to persons, start moving. Your journey will come in its time, and it's an understanding of your season. And I think aptly, so fittingly, the conversations today will be so exceptional in continuing that conversation. And so as I welcome persons much more, if I believe the first speaker is here, I want to waste no much more time to start into if it is that we have a special guest speaker this evening, which will be Mr. Junior Galette. Let me just confirm that he is here at this time before I go into introducing. Right, he is. So thank you. So Mr. Junior Galette, ladies and gentlemen, will be our first presenter for today. I said at the very start that this is a very special guest speaker, and I had to point that out from the very start. You know, we had such exciting conversation. It's fitting that you are here to only get the very best. Now, of course, he is you will maybe know him as an NFL player, but he's also an activist, a philanthropist. And, he's one that describes himself as really, even since his playing days, working and activating for young people, for professionals, and seeking to motivate persons in every single way. He'll be touching on a lot of things today, but specifically about the work with networking and relationships. I don't want to even take up his time anymore because I see he's excited to speak to us, and the persons are just as excited. Mr. Galette, whenever you are ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that proper introduction, Shamar. I really appreciate that. But hey, guys, thank you for having me here. My name is Junior Galette. I played 8 years in the National Football League, 5 years for the Saints and 3 years for the Redskins. But my journey was pretty crazy. So I was born in Haiti. I was under the impression that there'd be a lot of people from the West Indies on this call. So I definitely wanted to, take advantage and speak to some of my people, because as we know, we have these platforms where we can reach to so many different people now. We can have these meetings. This is something that wasn't around when I was going to school just, 10, 12 years ago. That's how much it's how fast times are changing. But I was born in Haiti. I came here 10 years old. Obviously, I couldn't speak the language that I'm speaking right now. English is my second language, so it was very difficult to make that adjustment. But the same way that I look at my difficulties and my rough upbringing, I also look at it as an advantage over other people who kind of had that silver spoon their whole life and don't really understand what it takes to work or to earn that dollar. And of course, it gives me the advantage of those where I'd appreciate it more when I do get to success. So it doesn't matter where you're at right now, how poor you are as far as monetary, you really have to believe in your dream. You have to believe in yourself. Nobody's going to believe in you more than you. No one can be a better attorney for you than yourself in your life. So you really have to take advantage of the relationships that you have right now. And I know you guys saying, well, he's in the NFL. How did relationships? Well, it's really this simple. The NFL is, as you know, is a, I don't know, $50 billion corporation. So the impact that your relationships that you have with other people that you've met in your life is so meaningful to what you will do in life. I really can't exchange how much relationships are worth, to me. Relationships and the network that I've gained throughout the years of overcoming. People know me for, always overcoming adversity, being from Haiti and having a tough route. I went to Temple University. I got a full scholarship to Temple University because I applied myself and said, I'm going to make it. I got to Temple University. I realized it's even more athletes, 119 guys now playing at the Division I football level that, on a team, and I have to be one out of 119 guys on a team to even get a chance. It's literally, to make it to the NFL is literally, it's less than 1%. It's less than 1% chance. So when I tell you that with a job like that, relationships do have an impact when it comes to the job interviews, because 2010, I entered the draft. I didn't get drafted. I go in there as an undrafted free agent, but I had a reputation. And the reputation that I had at the time was that I worked my tail off. I was highly talented and I worked very hard, and I'm a team guy. So that being said, my reputation from high school, we're talking about, I ended up going to the Saints, and where, they had just been coming off a Super Bowl. So they were on their high horse. They had just reached the pinnacle of their success for an NFL team. So how am I, a rookie, gonna enter this Super Bowl winning team and give back to them what I have? This young rookie, right? 21 years old from Haiti, didn't really know much at the time. But I did know how to network, because in college it's the same thing. At Temple University, I became a team captain. And the same token for the Saints, after 3 years, I also became a team captain. And the way I did that was I networked. The relationships and the people on the team, I cared about the people who I was coming to work with. I sat down. So there's 53 guys on the NFL team. I told you college is 119. There's 53 guys on the NFL roster. I made it my purpose to sit down with a different individual every day at breakfast. I mean, I come to work, I just want to sit with someone different. And I'm really putting an emphasis on that. I was really anal about it, because I wanted my reputation. Who did I want to be remembered as somebody who's respectable and a leader, who's here for the sole purpose is to win and to bring as much as I can to the team. So I was able to bring a lot of the qualities that I used to have success in college to the NFL. So now I end up signing a 4-year, $48 million deal at just 25 years old, a team captain, leading the team to 13 wins in a season. And it takes a lot of the qualities that I'm talking about, the leadership qualities, not being afraid to take a risk, not being afraid to, be left out, be a loner. I feel like we live in a day and age where social media controls so much and has an impact on our lives. And I overheard Shamar quite a bit talking about anxiety. And I wasn't one of those guys who was afraid of what people might say, and the people that had success to play 8 years in the NFL, the chances of you doing that, the majority of people who have careers that last that long at a high level, they do the same exact things that I'm telling you about. They have these leadership qualities and they apply themselves every day. It might get boring, it might get lonely, but you have to believe in what you want to be. No one can tell you what you're going to be 5, 10 years from now. I mean, the dynamic of the technology is changing so rapidly that you need to have relationships. It's at an all-time high now, because you just don't know who you will need in the future. So right now, what I didn't really digest into is that I'm in the middle of a lawsuit against the NFL because I've been blackballed because I called out pay discrimination. Now, if it wasn't for the relationships that I gained throughout the years, I wouldn't have had the confidence that I had to go against almighty entity in the NFL. And as we've seen over the last few weeks, I think the whole incident with John Gruden and the emails coming out, the 650,000 emails. Well, I know for a fact that my name, Junior Galette, is involved in those emails, but it's because I'm able to have relationships dating back to when I was 12 years old, that I have a special that I have to do next week on ABC. It's going to be it's going to be a pretty big story about what's been going on with my arbitration versus the NFL. I kind of, skipped around a little bit. I didn't want to take, so much of the time because we have other speakers, but I wanted to touch up on how impactful relationships have been in my life and having a solid and formidable reputation, because that does follow you your entire life. So I had, the relationships of people who were in those networks that now I'm able to create a certain type of buzz, which is really helping me with my lawsuit, and I could, move on with my life. I also divested in the music industry. I have a record label where I found 3 artists who ended up going platinum, and Chef G, Sleepy Hollow, and 5 Yo Foreign. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but that was because I wasn't afraid to take a risk and apparently invest in not only myself, but invest in someone that I thought, or certain people that I thought would be where they are at now, which is very successful artists that are bringing in a lot of money. And at the time, people thought I was, oh, what are you doing? You just focus on football. I thank God I did that, because I wouldn't understand the basic principles of just business throughout just, playing football my whole life. You have to actually have business experience. You have to have hands-on experience to actually take those losses that will eventually be lessons for you later on in life. So relationships are really crucial. The ones that you're making right now in college are very monumental to what you'll be doing in your life, because as we know it, as I said before, the technology is it's moving at such a rapid rate that I wouldn't be able to tell you what is the best way to succeed in business 5 years from now, when you guys 4, 5, 6 years from now, when you guys get out of school and start working for these companies, or if you want to be self-employed. So you must carry that reputation that you have in college, prior, even before college, high school. You just don't know who's going to be what in this economy, in this society that we are living in today. I think that's about it. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Junior. I think that was so insightful, because you were giving us so much, just from how you started into high school and college, into your playing days and everything. I was going to invite persons just at this time, just as the reminder that here's where you can start posing the questions. If you do in the chat, indicate by raising your hand, and I'll get to it in the moment and everything. Any questions or comments you have for Mr. Galette about these network and how those pull off the relationships and everything. But just if I can start prompting one in the moment, as persons get their time to ask that question. I see Mr. Pina has a raised hand. I don't know if it's on before. I'll get to it right after. Just have a question for you, Junior. Tell us how it was how was it for you, during that moment in your playing days, trying to build relations? Because I know a lot of persons here, we come to conferences and we hear relationships are good, it's good to connect. But let's say I'm an introvert, let's say I'm not as much of a social person as many of the speakers here, and it's so hard for me. It can be so very easy for them to say, you're a sports guy, just focus on that. What do you advise to those persons?
Well, there's more than one way that you can be a leader. It's not just being vocal. You can be a leader by just showing up every day and actually being accountable. And I feel like when you're in a business-like environment, the people who come to work to really make a living, they're going to respect that, and they're going to regard you as one of the leaders, regardless of not, whether or not, if you don't have those, qualities in your personality, because everyone is different. What you bring to the table and what Casey brings to the table will be completely different. And I need the more the merrier, so it really, you don't have to be outspoken like I am or a lot of other, leaders. You can just lead by example in what you do every day. And as we know, reputation is the father of learning. So you keep repeating good behavior and repetition, you will be rewarded that way in all the businesses that you endeavor.
All right, thank you. I believe Mr. Pina has a question. You can now speak, sir.
Absolutely. Junior, how are you? I had a question for you, sir.
I'm blessed.
So I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so I'm well aware of Temple, your playing career at Temple. I'm also a very large Philadelphia Eagles fan. So for those on the call, I can attest to Mr. Galette's statement. He used to beat my team pretty handily. I remember it was his name very well, so excited to share some time with you today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Also wanted to mention, my specific question for you, Junior, was I know you had some injuries, right, throughout your career. And for those who don't know, NFL player, your livelihood is your body and your health, right? I guess talk to everyone on the call about how you were able to come back from those. I believe it was some foot or an Achilles injury, right? And a few of them, if I recall, your career. Talk to them about how you came back from that injury and maybe had to pivot. There's that word again. How you had to pivot from an injury into your career now.
Well, obviously, as professional athletes are regarded as modern day superheroes. And the first time you get a serious injury, as I did, and back-to-back Achilles ruptures. The first time I got hurt, that was like the first time in my life where I didn't feel like Superman. I realized that, okay, I'm not Superman. I'm probably more like Batman, because and that's okay. That's completely fine to be Batman, because Batman is actually more realistic. He's more human. He goes out and does his thing in the night, but he still gets hurt. He still gets hurt, and he's able to do what he needs to do, for the city. Well, I like that reference because, as I said, it was the first time where I felt like, wow, I'm less than of a man. I actually questioned myself, and it is beautiful now. It's so beautiful because you really don't see how much that pain that you're going through will help you if you just actually go through it and embrace that struggle. So I was able to embrace that and say, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to rise to the occasion, because not only have I torn my Achilles once, but I've done it twice. I've torn on both ankles, and no one's ever come back from that. I need to be the first person to come back from that. And I was able to do that. So speaking, hearing you talk right now, I can't say you're an Eagles fan. My first game back in 2 years, in 2017, was actually the Eagles. And I actually got a sack on like my third snap of that game. But it was because I was able to prepare myself so many times for that moment, over the 900 days since the last time I had played. I've prepared myself so many times mentally, like what I'm going to do, that when I actually got to the moment, it was like, wow, this is easy. This feels like I've been there before. So I'd like to say that it's not going to be comfortable all the time. It's not going to be sweet and easy. That's just life in itself. You're going to have to go through some hardships to be able to get to the promised land. That's just the way it is. I don't know who in business has ever had, a success that's worthy of, of note, that didn't have any struggle early on. So yes, the injuries were a tough experience in my journey, but just like many great athletes did in overcoming injuries, I did as well. And I was able to do that because of my relentlessness and belief in myself. And again, I forgot to skip. I skipped over the part where I actually had a relationship. I had a network of people that actually were doctors and were looking to find a way to rehab the Achilles injury the second time I did it. So the second time I did it, I had a holistic doctor who was able to repair me and help me rehab and get back to 100% within 4 months. So again, relationships played a part just through being in NFL and having a respectable reputation.
All right, thank you. And that was really so insightful. I think at the same time, I have a question coming from the chat here from Simone, who says, how did you make the change from being an athlete to being a business person who has this record label and signs on artists?
Well, the same qualities that I applied for football, I applied with my record label. The same leadership qualities where I love to motivate. I love to write down ideas that I have. I love to question myself on how far I want to make it in life and what exactly I want to do. So again, it's all on, you know, building the relationships that you need in order for you to succeed in whatever that you're doing. So it wasn't really that much of an adjustment coming from an NFL locker room to running a music label, because as you know, NFL locker rooms are, you know, probably what, 75% Black. And the music that I was promoting was a lot more hip hop and R&B. So it wasn't much of an adjustment for me to have actually the people believed in me more that I had success in the NFL. So now I told them like, hey, I want to do this music stuff and promote these artists. It was easier for me to engage with some of my peers who had known me my entire life.
All right, that's really, really fun. That's really, really amazing. And I love that. Just in case we don't have any more questions, the person can continue to pose. But I was going to consolidate everything with a question of mine, but I love that we just said a while ago, because my question is going to be about, you've been talking about rising to the occasion. You had to rise to the occasion in that moment, to that injury, and how it is that it was a mental effort and you had to be mentally tough. I was going to ask about, just tell us about rising to that occasion, how you had to adjust in your mental fortitude. When is it that you're just coming over from Haiti and you were in that transition of, you know, getting used to that environment mentally, and you started sports from that point when you were in school? And I want to ask about that transition. But a while ago, you just said that the transition from the NFL, from the locker room to music wasn't that difficult. And I think it's perfectly set up for me to ask, but compare that to the transition before that for you. So in the earlier part of your story.
The transition, you mean coming from America, Haiti to America?
Right. And
oh yeah,
sports,
now that was, of course, the most difficult transition that I've ever made, because obviously I couldn't speak a lick of English. I couldn't understand. So that was one of the most important things. But early on, it taught me to read body language. That was a huge quality that I learned. You come into America and not be able to speak the language. It taught me that kids can be really cruel. And I'm real happy that we didn't have social media back then, because some of the things that were being said about, you know, immigrants that come from Haiti or Jamaica or any West Indies, they got it rough. So it wasn't easy at all, but it gave me the chip on the shoulder that I felt like I needed in my life. You know, I just always wanted to prove to myself, you know, I wanted to prove to myself more than I wanted to prove to others. I wanted to, so when I first came here and I was like, you know what, I have to learn this language within 6 months. I have to do this. I read as many books as I possibly could. I mind you, I was in 4th grade, so it wasn't really, I listened to as much music as I possibly could, but it was more slow music, because at that time, I was learning the language by listening to a lot of R&B music.
Yeah. No, why I put you read it, because
no, remember, it's you.
saying when I write.
Nobody want to write pen.
Shall we want to read it? No. From a part.
Well, you could give me one.
Are we good now?
Just a reminder, everyone, that you are in active speaker mode, and so persons remain muted until you are properly allowed to do so. So continue, Junior. You're right. You were saying it was so difficult reading body language, right?
Yeah, it was difficult, but it was an adjustment, because I was able to, you know, learn how to adapt with reading body languages. And once I started able to form words together, it made life that much easier. But it was definitely not an easy transition for me to be coming from a 3rd world country to America. Obviously, the language barrier in itself is as difficult as you can think. But I'm glad that I was able to come at an early age in 4th grade, and to lose pretty much all of my accent. My brother wasn't so lucky. He came, he was about 14 years old. He still has his accent. So it was definitely a difficult transition, but I was able to make those adjustments by just being the most competitive student and athlete that I could be. So my peers would often look up to the person, you know, 12 years old with a thick accent, but he could, you know, play basketball and, you know, play football. So I was able to make my adjustments through sports, and a lot of my peers accepted me because of that.
All right, thank you. I know I said I was going to be wrapping up with a question, but I really think that's so insightful because you keep mentioning this idea of the mental, mental toughness and how you have to look at body languages. I know we have a lot of questions. I might just be able to take one more during this segment. So let me just take another I see here from Anthony, who says, so in that moment, when it was that you sat with different teammates daily, what were some of those conversations you had? Was it, if I add on to that, was it similar? Were other persons similar with this mindset? I know everyone comes from different backgrounds. So what kind of those conversations?
Everyone's different, but I feel like as human beings, being from, especially coming from me, I feel like people are always interested, like, wow, when they hear that, wow, Haiti, people always have questions about that. So I'm never really shy to even talk about where I'm from. You don't really have to, go into, you're in a workplace, you don't really have to go into details and ask the person too many questions because they might not be as personable, but maybe if you're open to, telling the person some things about yourself that's a little personal that you don't mind, then they'll be more keen to opening up to you because you're right. Everyone is different and not everyone will be as vocal, but everyone has their, everyone has their vices. Everyone has something that they can relate to. So it's just finding that, whatever you can that can spark up a conversation. It could be as small as, hey man, what you got? What are you eating there? It could be something as simple as that, or asking them why do they, believe in eating that. And now you're talking about, starting vegan restaurants. Who knows? But it doesn't matter. Whatever you have to actually let the person know that you actually recognize them, opposed to just going to work and clocking out and not speaking to anyone. Now that's just not good.
All right. Was there any like specific mottos or any mantras that you had during that time that helped push you on, or you always thought about?
Well, I mean, of course, my faith. I mean, I'm not sure if everyone's really, I'm more a spiritual person, coming from Haiti, my faith. And of course, again, my reputation in overcoming adversity was what always, gave me the edge, being that I came from Haiti, I had to learn the language, had to, make the team as an undrafted free agent. So just my past recollection of always overcoming when I was in a tough spot would remind me that, okay, everything's going to be okay. I just need to make some adjustments and overcome this barrier.
All right, exceptional. Julia, it's been absolutely amazing. I've loved hearing just around the stories and everything that you've been able to tell us. I think it's been really insightful just hearing around your playing days, coming over to America, this mental toughness and mindset. And so I just want to thank you for your time, your expertise, the vigor. I love how you speak with such honesty. You said before that, a person's appreciated and he came out of playing just because they know it feels real. And I think, as we can tell from the chats, the questions that persons have, I think it's really a telling that persons appreciate the kind of person you are, and we're appreciative of the messaging that you've given us today. And thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me. And to close out this, my part of the interview, Brittany Clark is the person that was, told me about this speaking engagement, and it was kind of last second. But again, this is somebody who I've known since college. And again, this is how I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I kind of needed some practice in speaking in front of people. I got, a major interview that I have to do with ABC next week. So this is great practice. So again, just to touch up on how important relationships are, Brittany was somebody I respected in college, and for us to still be and communicate now 15 years down the line, that just goes to show you how crucial importance relationships are.
All right, thank you, absolutely. And as everyone says, thanks for sharing. Thank you again, Junior. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here with us, I want you to just tell us, how are you enjoying it so far? Day 2 has been absolutely going. How are you? T. Riley says it's been real. Thank you. Thanks for determination. I want just in case just in case you're listening casually, I want person to come back in and say enjoying it. Renee says excellent in caps, and if the caps in it, Miriam says she's thankful for the sharing that she's been given so far. And so thank you. I want to ask that you continue to stick around with us for the rest of this evening. As Shelly says, this was fantastic. Well, I have news for you, Shelly, that this evening I have this little belief that the entire evening will be fantastic. And I hope they continue to stay with us. As Gloria says, it is insightful. Ladies and gentlemen, we have started off this evening hearing about how one man has navigated his life journeys, his expertise in sport, and how it is that he rose from that even afterwards in music, encapsulating and banking on his mental toughness and his story. And I think it's so fitting as we move on to our next presenter. We're going to move on to a similar perspective, to a similar story, but that's interesting spin on the perspective, where it is that our next speaker described himself as he went from one that sponsoring sports, sponsoring teams, sponsoring sports, to now becoming involved in youth development. And we want to hear the story about just his path to success, how it is that, just as how we heard from a gentleman so involved in sports and his story before, how this next speaker himself has gone from just being in that industry to help developing young persons and affecting. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, because that speaker was Mr. Casey de la Pina. He's currently the Director of Development for Junior Achievement South Florida. He's most recently working with the NBA's Miami Heat as their Director of Corporate Partnership. He's actually spent more than 20 years, in media and corporate partnership world, which has 10 years plus working in New York City's brands such as ESPN, DirecTV, JP Morgan Chase, and IKEA. Ladies and gentlemen, he has graduated from the University of Massachusetts. Originally from Melbourne, but Lee says, ladies and gentlemen, but you absolutely have to mention his daughter, who he thinks about every single time with his youth development work, as he gives us an excellent smile. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another story that Renee says we're going to hear a valuable piece of advice. And Mr. De La Pina, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, and the stage is yours.
Shamar, thank you so much. First of all, thanks to Junior Galette. As I mentioned that question, I knew Junior from his playing days. Didn't know him, but watched him. A few things I want to touch on what he said. He talked about he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he achieved without having that silver spoon. And I'm actually going to touch on that when I discuss my story. He said he needed those tough times in life to truly appreciate when you win, which I think is huge. I always say if you haven't lost, you don't really know how to win. And I've lost plenty. And I'll touch on that here shortly. Relationships. I wrote that down too, so I want to stress on that. Relationships are always key, and your reputation follows you. So a little bit about me. I'm 43 years old. I have a beautiful 10-year-old daughter. I live outside of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I was invited to speak by Dr. Ty Richardson, a friend of mine. Life brought Ty and I into our same universe recently. I'd say over the past 3 or 4 months, and I'm super excited that he's included me tonight. So tonight I kind of want to just really talk through my path. And I have a few quotes prepared, and please jump in. My background, I've always been a sports fan. As you can tell, I knew Junior Galette from his playing days. I've always been a sports fan, and growing up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I would say it was a middle class upbringing, but I always wanted to work in sports. I went to the University of Massachusetts, which is in Amherst, Massachusetts, close to Boston, if you guys know that, where I actually studied sports management. I wanted to work in sports. After I graduated from the University of Massachusetts, I spent 10 years living in New York City, in Manhattan, did some time in Queens, and then I moved to South Florida in 2009, So I've been here for about 12 years. I had worked my entire career to get to where I was recently. For those of you who follow the NBA, I was the Director of Corporate Partnerships for the Miami Heat. What does that mean? When you watch an NBA game, or in Junior's case, an NFL game, and you see any kind of signage in the background, so say you're watching a game and you see a big Geico sign, or you see a big State Farm insurance sign, anything you see in the background on the TV, I was selling that. And I loved my job. It was great. When I got my job in the early parts of 2019, I felt that I had made it, right? I had made it to the top of the heap, I guess you could say. And then one day I woke up and I realized that my dream job wasn't my dream job. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about and field your questions for. Less than 7 months ago, I made a massive career switch. I had worked for the first 20 years of my career to get into the sports world. I was working for the NBA, three-time world champion NBA Heat. Early March, during COVID, I was actually sitting at this table, and my daughter had been spending so much time with me here in the States. You know, we had a lot of virtual schooling, as I'm sure that has happened around the world quite a bit. And one morning I woke up and I was thinking to myself how nice it was not having a very, very, very long commute from where I live to where the Miami Heat play. It was over an hour in my car, about 30, 35 miles each way. Some days nearly 2 hours there and 2 hours back. Excuse me. Plus a crazy game schedule of more than 40 games working at 40 games per year. So that means getting to the arena at noon and sometimes not getting home until midnight or 1 o'clock. So when COVID hits, I kind of started thinking I've reached the pinnacle of the sporting world, but something didn't feel right. I have all these great relationships. Junior had mentioned relationships. I have these great relationships from my past here, both locally in Florida and New York City. And during COVID, it kind of made you think, it made everybody think, what's important? And I woke up one day and I said, I'm not fulfilled. How can I really give back? So I made the, some might call it insane decision to resign from the Miami Heat in the beginning of March without having anything lined up. And as I told Ty when I first met him, I wanted to see what the universe threw out at me. I wanted to see what came my way. And after a few different job offers, I received an introduction to a local nonprofit CEO here in South Florida with a nonprofit called Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement is a worldwide organization. Here in the States, we're based in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And Junior Achievement is all about teaching, I'll put it simply for the group here, it's all about teaching children financial literacy. So what does that mean? We start in 5th grade, we have a 5th grade program, and we have an 8th grade program, and we're working on an 11th grade program. So basically, we install curriculum into the schools, 5th graders, so these are what, 11 or 12-year-olds. They'll take 20 hours of curriculum in their classroom that we'll help teach. That will then culminate to I see from John Leslie, Junior Achievement is in Jamaica. It's a great organization. So they'll take 20 hours of curriculum and then they'll come. We have a building in a town called Coconut Creek, Florida, where the kids will come and we'll literally put them to work. Thank you, Stacia. Yeah, it's a great place. I love seeing all the engagement here with JA. So the kids will come to JA and we'll put them to work. Every storefront, you know, we have, I hope to get Dr. Ty to the building one day, but we have over 36 separate storefronts where the kids will actually work. They'll have a chief marketing officer, they'll have a chief financial officer, they'll have a director of sales, where throughout their school day at the building, they will work and they will, you know, be putting into practice everything we've taught them in the classroom. So how to save, how to invest, you know, they'll get a business loan. They'll actually get a business loan out at the beginning of the day. And if they can't repay their business loan, well, their business didn't do well that day. So it's a really amazing, nonprofit, and it's something I'm very passionate about. Shamar had mentioned my 10-year-old daughter. I'm a single father. I have a great relationship with her mom. Her mom actually lives across the street from me, it's an amazing co-parenting relationship. It is possible, and we're proof of it. So we have this great relationship, an amazing, super bright 10-year-old daughter. Who I want to teach, and this is where I kind of really want to tell you guys, I want to teach her everything that I was never taught growing up as it pertains to finance, right? I'm 43 years old. My mother's in her late 60s. My mom is, you know, she would save money under a mattress, literally save money under a mattress. And she would put money into a savings account. And as you know, savings accounts right now don't pay much interest at all. And excuse me, but I don't know how savings accounts pay where all of you live respectively. But here in the United States, savings accounts do not pay well at all. So you need to find other ways to save and invest into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, what have you. So that's what we're teaching the kids at an early age. And it has been so amazing. And I just can't wait to teach my daughter. She's actually gonna be going through the program in 5th grade, which is next year. So it's an amazing program. And I look back at my time in sports, which was over, you know, the better part of 20 years in and around the sports world, and I don't miss it one bit. Why? Because I see kids' smiling faces every day. And when I see them When a hand raises and they say, "Oh, Mr. Casey, I get it now." Like when we teach them the budget and their budget finally matches up after 20 minutes of trying to figure out, are you saving too much? Are you saving too little? Oh, well, guess what? You drove to work and you just got a nail in your tire and you have to replace a tire. And you have to explain to these kids, well, a new tire can cost up to $200 and a new set of tires is probably going to set you back $800-900. So it's pretty cool when you see their faces kind of light up and say, "Oh my God, a new tire is, $300. It's crazy," because then they think this is where it really, really cool. They realize what their parents are paying for their upbringing. As we all know, for those who have kids on this call, kids are super freaking expensive. They're not cheap. And I said to one kid recently, an 8th grader, he had his phone with him, and he put the phone down on the table. And I said, I forget the boy's name, but I said, "Hey, say that phone drops off the table. How much is that phone going to cost?" He said, "Oh, I don't know. My dad pays for it." I said, "Okay, well, maybe you should ask him. But let me tell you, as a father, that iPhone probably costs well over $1,000. And his eyes were like, "No way." I said, "Yep." And then so as you try to, this is the 8th grade program where they come in and we teach them about budgeting. So there's a 5th grade and an 8th grade program. So I'm super excited about it. We actually have one of our largest social events of the year tomorrow night here in South Florida. It's a big deal. Actually, just today we just sold it out. So we'll be raising in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'll be raising in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for our programs tomorrow night at a local casino. So we're super excited about this. But I don't know if there's any specific questions as it pertains to career change. I think that's how I can best add value to all of you. Like I told Ty, it's kind of crazy when you think you have your dream job and then you realize one day you wake up and it's not your dream job at all. It's a crazy, scary feeling, but knowing that now I'm giving back more to the youth of South Florida. And the other thing is I live in a county called Broward County. We serve all of Broward County schools. Broward County, the students we serve are considered, 70% of them are considered underserved, which means they're on, a lower socioeconomic spectrum. Their parents may not be around. Their parents may not be able to help. Their parents may not know how to help teach them financial skills, right? Here in South Florida, we have what we call a workforce problem. We don't have a pipeline of children coming up out of schools that are prepared to have and hold good jobs, right? In the States, we say, listen, it's fine that you choose not to go to college, right? That's okay. But what's your plan going to be? If you don't go to college, and I'll tell all of you that too, I don't know the age group here on the call, but if you don't choose to go to college, what are you going to do? Is it going to be in the trades, plumber, electrician? That's amazing, right? We all need that stuff. And there are some great and high paying and high demand jobs in those fields. So what I'll tell all of you is make your plan, right? Just make your plan, sit down, figure it out. And so now for me, it's just been amazing. You can see it on my face. I get super passionate about this. And I saw some more comments come in, but if there is a junior achievement near you, reach out to them and volunteer. They're always looking for volunteers and they can always use some help. But again, this is about engaging children and making sure we have a great workforce here in South Florida. Any specific questions for me?
Right, so here everyone, here's where someone didn't even waste any more time. They've absolutely loved hearing you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, Mr. Della Pina. I see one here immediately from Renee that says, what would you say are some of the things most necessary that you had to do that were the most intimidating to have to go through? So anything most intimidating?
I'm assuming she means in my life or in business. So,
I'm going to assume it's both for life.
Okay, so I'll say, okay, thank you, Renee.
She says either one.
So
actually.
I was raised mainly by a single mom, right? So you see me coming here tonight from Florida, glasses, decent shirt on. It wasn't always like that. To Junior's point, you have to understand how to lose so you can understand how to win. So I was mainly raised by a single mom. I had different men in and out of my life. My biological father was not involved. I didn't have a relationship with him. So I saw my mother making, at an early age, I saw my mom making some difficult decisions as it pertains to finances. And I remember at a young age thinking, that's not right. That didn't feel right. I will never, ever put my daughter in this kind of situation. So after, growing through that and I was the first person in my family to go to college, I kind of said, all right, if I ever become a father, I'm going to do the exact opposite of what, I hate saying it, but the exact opposite of the way my mom raised me, and I'm going to do that. And that's kind of what I've been doing with my daughter. I teach her a lot of stuff. So for me, I think the hardest thing to overcome was probably not having a father figure in my life. However, I look back and it was never like, it wasn't like, oh my God, my dad's not in my life. It was just, okay, he's not my life. I deal with it, right? I have a feeling there's some folks on the call where you may not have the best relationship with your mom or your father, and maybe there's even some of you who don't have a great relationship with your parents. And I'll tell you what to do with that. You use that as fuel. It's easier said than done, but if you can use that and take that and kind of, I think of all the stuff I went with not having a father, and if you put it in a bottle, right? Pretend like you get all these feelings you have and put them in a bottle, and pretend that bottle is like your gasoline, and use that to succeed. That's kind of what I've been doing. And I think that was intimidating. And some people may say, oh my God, that was a lot. Again, looking back as a kid, kids don't know why your dad is or is not around. But now it's like, he passed away 10 years ago. We didn't have a relationship. So yeah, I'm good. And that has made me a really, as I think, a pretty good father. So I'd say the hardest part for me was not having that father figure. And if I had a father figure, this is what's really scary. If I had a father, I always wonder if I would have turned out the way I am now. Say I had this perfect father, this perfect family that many people dream of. I don't know that I would have wanted that, because I wouldn't have seen the stuff I saw to make me the person I am today. So I think there's a good, for those of you who have been dealt tough circumstances, maybe there's a reason for that. And maybe you should take that and do your best to overcome it.
All right, thank you for that. It's been really, really so insightful hearing that life story from you. I want to just interject and come in here with a question that I ultimately have, because I think for many of the persons here watching so far, they were like, oh my gosh, Judy achieved at the JA. They're like, oh, we have one here in Trinidad. I know we have one here in Jamaica that I would have been hearing about from high school, and I've been there, and we're going to get to some of that. But I want to ask, you said a quote here that I actually wrote down. You said, I woke up one morning and realized my dream job isn't actually my dream job. And for the persons watching here, that's, oh my God, I love this. I hope I can teach my child the same thing. How is it that what are some of the things that they can notice, say, hey, how can I just wake up and decide to just move to something else? And it's so difficult. We might be here in the Zoom. We came here for that inspiration. They came here to say, like, how do I start moving? How do you say to those persons there? Because, they might say, oh, you're in such a stable position, jobs. What would you say to a person like that?
So what I would tell you is I was in the position to be able to just pick up and resign because I have saved money my entire life, right? So it all comes back to that. So I knew that when I resigned, I didn't have to find a job immediately. I know in the way I've saved money my entire life, I could take a few months off. I could travel. I could do a lot of things. So first of all, unless you have some kind of a safety net, I would never fully recommend it. I'm not telling all y'all to go quit your job tomorrow and hope for the best, right? That's not what I'm saying. But if you do have a shred of doubt in your mind, what I would say is, there's this great thing. It's called the Great Resignation. I don't know if everyone's heard of this, but if you haven't heard about it, please look it up. And COVID has brought it on. It's all these people like myself saying, this is not what I want to do with my life. I want to do something different. And they're resigning. So what I'd say is, if you want to take these steps, again, I'm not recommending it unless you have a safety net, but if you do, give yourself some time. Save some money, figure out exactly if this is what you want to be doing. And then for me, making this jump has really changed my life in great ways. Like I said, and this is another weird part. If I don't leave the heat, I don't meet Dr. Ty Richardson, and I'm not on this call with you all tonight. So I firmly believe in that stuff. So I would say, think long and hard. And the other thing, before I forget, if any of you are on LinkedIn, please add me on LinkedIn. I'm a big believer in LinkedIn. We talk about relationships and networking. This is huge. So please write down my name, add me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to accept. And if I can ever help you, just shoot me a note and say, hey, Casey, would you mind chatting for 15, 20 minutes? It'd be my pleasure. I'll absolutely do my best to work you into my schedule. So listen, if you're thinking about changing jobs, take some time, make sure you do it right, save some money, and then maybe you can make that jump.
All right, excellent. And I think Kevin had a question here where you said that, so did you feel pressured in your scenario by family or friends to leave your former job? I know for you, you said that you had money saved up and everything, but just that's the financial side. Was there any other, pressures, family saying, okay, you have money, but no, just stay. What was it like for you?
I had, I think, one person in my life say, why the heck would you ever quit a fairly decent, high-paying job to join a nonprofit? And that's the wrong question to ask. The question I said was basically, what if you woke up one day and realized that what you're doing in the grand scheme of things means absolutely nothing? And I hate saying that, but that's how I felt. There's tons of value to selling signs for an NBA team, right? But the Miami Heat does not need my money, right? They have Jimmy Butler, they have Bam Adebayo, they have the championship rings, they sell everything in the stores. They're one of South Florida's biggest $1 billion businesses, right? They have a seat that brings in 18,000 people a night. The signs that I sell are only enriching the Miami Heat. And I woke up one morning and I just said, you know what? I'm done with that. So yeah, people who know me best said, okay, Case, if this is what you want to do, go do it. But know that there could be ramifications, right? You could be out of work for a long time. But I wasn't. I took some time. I was strategic. I had a few job offers come to me pretty quickly, but they all didn't feel right. They were in my kind of old field where I said, you know what, these are nice jobs, high paying jobs, but it's not what I want to do. So, and to be honest, I'll tell the group, I am now making a lot less money than what I was with the Miami Heat. But you know what? I have savings. I have everything, I've planned everything out. I've budgeted everything. I do my best to keep to my budget. I mean, there are some months where you kind of go through your budget, but as long as you're doing it most months of the year, you should be good. So I also know that over time, money at the end of the day isn't everything. Money's important, don't get me wrong, but I know that when I wake up every morning feeling fulfilled, working with kids and teaching my daughter and giving back and creating a legacy for my daughter, a true legacy, that's what it means to me.
All right, thank you. And questions are just pouring in. Case I see everybody who's sending it in the chat. We're going to try to get as much as possible and everything. What I've actually loved about the conversation so far is that I love how practical you are, breaking it down for us. Here's what I would suggest. I'm going to be practical and honest. It won't come so simple. Don't just leave it unless you think about it. And that goes right into our next question from Simone that says, after resigning, how did you decide, what opportunity was to choose next? He said, again, there, two offers, it did not feel right. When is the moment you realize that this is the right choice?
Her name is Simone. Did I ask that question?
Yes.
So Simone, it was when I met the woman who hired me. And you guys know this too. When you start a job, many times you're buying into your boss too, right? There's no one on this call who wants to work for a jerk or somebody who just doesn't treat you fairly. When I met my boss and I heard the mission, and quite frankly, I saw a lot of you who knew Junior Achievement. I had never heard of it. I lived 42 years and never had ever heard of Junior Achievement. So when I heard their mission, like I saw some of you threw in for the chat, it's an amazing mission. Like, how cool is this? If you're a parent or if you're a college student or anything, financial literacy is important for everybody. There's not one person in this world who doesn't or can't learn more about how better to use their finances. And financial literacy became this big, huge term, but there's so many things within that. So I think you just kind of feel it, right? When the universe puts something in front of you and you know it's right. I just kind of felt it. I heard the mission. I met my boss, who's the CEO of the nonprofit. I heard about what they did, and I didn't talk. Last year we served in a COVID affected year. We served nearly 43,000 students in Broward. So think about that. That's 43,000 lives. The majority of those 43,000 are from underserved communities, right? So we're talking many white kids, many Hispanic kids, many Black children, right? And we serve every Broward student equally, but since we skew underserved, I like to think that, the majority of the work we're doing does really impact the underserved communities maybe a little more effectively than it does the overserved communities. Because if you get to one of these underserved kids and they say that, and they hear something, and maybe it's our hope that, we're going to engage them in 5th grade, engage them in 8th grade. We also have a whole high school program that I barely talked about, but that they are then leaving high school, and this is on top of 60 hours of curriculum, 20 in 5th, 20 in 8th, and then 20 in high school. After 60 hours of curriculum, 3 trips to our building in Coconut Creek, Florida. If we can touch a few kids, we've done our job. This year, we're expecting to touch about 50,000 kids. And that's just mind-boggling, right? So if we get to 10% of those kids, that's 5,000 kids who can then take those skills and pass it down generationally. Again, in my family, I broke many cycles. I went to college. I was the one who learned finances. I was home for Christmas last year and I was watching, we have CNBC here in the States. It's all about finances and stock markets and stuff. My mom said, "Where did you learn this stuff?" And I said to her, "Mom, you certainly didn't teach me." So she laughed at that comment, but I did learn it myself. So listen, guys, Google, YouTube, there's so much stuff out there on finances right now. There's no reason why you shouldn't, understand saving, invest. You don't need to be an expert in savings and investing, but there's so many tools. And Junior said the same thing with relationships and building relationships virtually. There's so many different videos and conferences out there online you can attend. So it's a good place to start is online.
All right, excellent. And I love you said at the start there that for one thing, you just kind of felt it. You just kind of feel it in the moment. The second thing you mentioned was, and you get bought, you buy into your boss and the mission just sounded absolutely amazing. And I think those are insightful things. But of course, he said, take your time and think about it and ensure it's in order. As Renee here is asking, she wants to hear a lot more about the time you took off and how that helps. Specifically, she uses travel here as the example. So would you recommend it? And would you recommend traveling? And would you suggest traveling light over going for a more luxurious excursion?
Sure. So I chose not to travel during my time off. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I don't really love traveling without her, first of all. So for me, there's also this kind of panic that you have when you leave any job. You're like, holy moly, what did I just do? And holy moly, am I gonna ever get another job? And am I employable and all that stuff? But I'm sure you all have great skills to bring to the table. But for me, I chose to appreciate the time off as much as possible. From the time I resigned until the time I started a new job. So I resigned beginning of March. I was employed end of April. It was under 2 months. And I would say within 6 weeks, I knew that I was getting a job offer. So I'd like to say those 6 weeks, I live here in South Florida, right? Beaches, Dr. Ty knows, right? It wasn't like I was sitting back relaxing, sipping on a coconut drink at some resort somewhere. I was pounding the pavement, making sure I had my next position lined up, but at the same time being strategic in what I was looking at, and even more strategic in accepting what was coming my way. So unfortunately, I can't say that I went to Bali or flew to Cancun on a trip. I did not do that. But listen, if you have the funds and the wherewithal to take some time off and travel, go for it. You only live once, right?
All right. I see here that one person is asking what financial literacy tools you recommend. But as I get to that one, I want to really ask you. So, and this again, for the benefit of persons watching here, thank you so far for being so interactive, sending your questions. And what I want to ask you to just drive conversation is, so let's say we did what you said. We took the time, we analyzed it, we said what we wanted to do, and we're currently in that phase now of thinking about my next move and what's going to happen. For persons like that, where they have so many interests, passions, so they're not even kind of sure, I don't know, for you didn't know about Jude Achievement was the one coming in. What do you think advice for those persons who they do want to switch careers, but they don't even know, for example, is it going to be youth development? Am I going to move from project to media? Where is it? And they're in this space of, maybe they don't have as much connection at the moment. So they're wondering, how do I go? What do you say to those kind of persons there? So they don't even know where they want to go yet.
So Shamar, I'm going to read a quote from the presentation I put together. And the quote says, if you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way. So think about that again. If you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way. So no change happens overnight, right? What I would say to you is, especially if you're on LinkedIn, some of you may be, some of you may not, find the folks in the field that you're interested in. Say you want to get into banking. Start reaching out to as many people in and around banking that you can, right? As I say, find the helpers. You're going to reach out to somebody and they're going to say, Shamar, why would I ever give you 20 minutes of my time? Or they're going to say, Junior Galette, why would I give you 15 minutes? Why would I ever share a cup of coffee with you? I'm too busy, right? And unfortunately, that's the hard part of this. You know, I'm hoping when I get off this call, I see 89 LinkedIn requests from all of you, but I have a feeling I'll get less than 10. Okay, that's kind of the statistics of how this works. I hope to see them from all of you. And then I hope to hopefully have one-on-one conversations with you in some way, shape, or fashion, and maybe even continue a relationship, right? But what I would say, first thing you can do is take your time, figure out what it is you want to be. Maybe you want to be a zookeeper. I don't know. I'm making that up. Go to a zoo. Talk to somebody at the zoo, right? Maybe you want to be a tow truck driver. You know, go to the local tow truck station. Ask a guy. There's so many people out there willing to help. You just have to find them. Like I said, and that's another thing, Shamar, you know, find the helpers. You know, when I was in sports, I would say of every 10 LinkedIn requests or 10 phone calls I made, maybe 1 or 2, if I didn't know this person or if I didn't have a warm connection to them, maybe 1 or 2 would respond simply because I worked for the Miami Heat. Oh, he works for the Miami Heat. He's probably somebody I want to talk to, right? In the nonprofit space, it's even less. So if I reach out 10 or 11 times, I'll get maybe one, right? So what you have to do is you have to build this network. So whoever asked that question, great question. But take baby steps. Change doesn't happen overnight, right? You need to figure out, well, maybe in my case, I kind of did say, you know, this isn't my dream job. And then I resigned one day. So I'm a bad example of that quote. But I would say find the industry you're looking for and find the people around it and reach out and like I said, find the helpers.
Right, thank you. And I really wanted to ask that just because I know and we can see from the chat there that many persons might be sitting here thinking, right, I want to step out. Yesterday we had in a conversation, someone said it's a sign that they came here because they're in this phase of they're ready to move out and to jump out. And I want just to get the practical tips and guidance. If I can extend on that question that I put forward. So let's say my LinkedIn profile is exceptional and I started answering messages. I found a helper. But Casey, I hear a lot about finding people and talking and meeting and networking, that word. But what do I do after I find them? Tell persons about building relations, because a lot of times you find them and you have a conversation, you think, I did it, I network. Tell them about just building that relation, how it is that's part of the process.
So a relationship isn't just one phone call, right? I always lead with, let me be your friend. I learned this tip not too long ago. Don't sell yourself. Just reach out. Like we call it, I say a virtual cup of coffee, right? If you say, I see the Shamar Wedderburn guy online. This guy looks like he knows what he's talking about. I really want to meet Mr. Shamar, right? What do? I reach out to Shamar. Hey, Shamar, I see you're involved in banking, right? I'm currently a school teacher and I'm really thinking about getting to banking. Would you be up for a 20-minute? I love 20 minutes, right? Would you be up for a 20-minute virtual cup of coffee? Don't say, hey, I want to pick your brain for just, and then on that call, hey, Shamar, thank you so much for taking your time, right? Let me hear a little bit about you. You don't find a lot of people who, when you ask them questions, they're not going to reciprocate and ask questions about you, right? So 20 minutes, I always try to keep it to 20, no more than 25, be respectful of their time. And then here's where a lot of people lose it in the follow-up, right? If somebody gives you a bit of their time, shoot them a thank you note. Maybe even mail them a thank you note, right? Old school, forget email, actual mail a piece of mail to them, which is kind of crazy these days, right? And continue to follow up with them. Throughout my journey of COVID, my COVID journey, I guess, I met a lot of great people and I've made these new friends virtually that Shamar, I haven't even met yet, right? I've made literally 5 or 6 really good friends that I still have yet to shake their hands in person. One guy's in Canada, right? I live in Florida. We always laugh because one of these days he's going to come down here. But relationships isn't about a one and done thing. Relationships is a two-way street. And I would say you need to, set up that initial virtual coffee, use that term, and then continue to follow up. And if they provide value in your life, why wouldn't you want to keep them around? Why wouldn't you want to continue to meet them either in person or continue if you can maybe find, hang out with them socially. Like Dr. Ty invited me to this. Our worlds combined a few months ago, And I do my best. You know, Dr. Ty's a very social guy. He's always out. I do my best. I live a little far away and I have a child, but I always love, like, Ty and I are going to build a great relationship. And I can already tell this is not a 3-month relationship. This could very well be a relationship that we create for the rest of our lives. Why? Because Ty and I are very similar spirits. You know, he's all about helping and giving back. And when I met Ty, I'm like, this is a guy I need in my life because I want to see how we can change things together. It's always hard finding the amount of time to do that, but I'm doing my damnedest to try to do that. So I love having the like-minded people. Does that help answer your question, how to build relationships? It's not just a one-time thing. You got to keep on it. And then the more relationships you build, the more good stuff comes your way.
No, you've absolutely answered the question, exceptional. And just to break it down just for everybody again, so essentially what I've been hearing is, you know, take your time to go straight, think about what it is you want to do, save up your money, make your plan and everything, and then start going through it. You know, use your LinkedIn, leverage the connections and start to see where it is that you want and use that time. Find the hashtag find the help for everybody, hashtag search Casey Delapina on LinkedIn after this session, as Sherry-Ann says yep. Absolutely great advice. Send him a message, say have a hashtag virtual coffee over the table.
Yes,
hello,
yes.
And how it is that we can start on this. Hashtag I am a school teacher. Can I speak and try to understand more about finance? I wish we had a working session after this, just to test persons actually doing this out actually. And I think they're so appreciative, Mr. Delapina. But we have another question. I don't know if there's any other more. You can send it after this one. But this question from Kevon says, what if you find a helper or a mentor in your passion area, but he or she, and this is an excellent question, is not a good communicator, rough around the edges, and doesn't exactly know how to effectively mentor somebody?
So I'm sorry, repeat are you saying basically you found a mentor, but they're kind of rough around the edges?
Yeah, not a good communicator. And right.
I mean, I think that's okay. So here's what I'll say: if a person wants to be a mentor or claims to be a mentor, my gut says chances are they're probably a decent communicator. I could be wrong, but I haven't had many mentors in my life who weren't good communicators. But if you do happen to get into that situation, I think in today's society, we've gotten so far away from these heart-to-heart conversations, hard heart-to-heart conversations. I would approach your mentor, Kevon, I think it was Kevon who answered that question, and say, hey, listen, Mr. or Mrs., you know, whatever the name is, I'm having a tough time communicating with you. Please, how do we communicate better? And what I always do is put it back on me. If you're trying not to make them feel bad, if you basically have a bad communicator that's a mentor to you, say to them, hey, Mr. Mentor, you know, what am I doing wrong? Always bring it back on you. And then chances are they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry, it's me, right? So I would say, put it back on you, even though it's not your fault. And chances are you're probably a good communicator, but tell them, it's me. It's the whole, it's not you, it's me thing. Use that and say, you know, Mr. Mentor, I need better communication, right? What am I doing wrong? And then chances are they'll open up better. Kevon, awesome. I want to add me on LinkedIn. I want to hear how that goes. I want to hear if you can, or if you know what, let's get all on the same conversation, you, me, and your mentor, and I'll make sure he or she communicates better with you.
All right, thank you. That's been so exceptional. And I think persons have just really appreciated just the practical insight going down. It's really absolutely amazing. And hopefully your LinkedIn posts are just as so amazing. I don't think we have any more questions. I'm going to thank you, Ms. Casey Delapina, just for your time, the expertise, the insights. Listen, my page is full. My paper is full at just all the wealth of insight that I've written down. I won't even be throwing this paper away. I'll write down the LinkedIn name right here at the moment. And so it's been an absolute pleasure. I see persons, Michelle from Kevon to Bradshaw, they're articulating that how much they've enjoyed this. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of LinkedIn connection requests. Thank you again for your time.
Guys. And again, I kind of was, and I'll say give kudos to Dr. Ty here too. When I got on today, I saw over 80 people on this. And now we're at 90 participants. I mean, guys, that's amazing. I haven't been in front of a group of 90 in quite some time. So what you're doing is fantastic. Keep up the sharing, right? It looks like Stacia is going to come here and speak behind us. Continue the sharing, continue the learning. We can all get better. I hope to meet all of you in person someday. If you're ever in South Florida, give Dr. Ty or myself a call. And I wish you all the best, truly. And please reach out. Let's keep this going.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been with us so far and you stick around, tell us that you're enjoying day 2. Tell us that you're the 2 presenters so far has been exceptional and you love the conversations as we got to the next presenter. Kevon says excellent. Patrice says excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, a while ago, Mr. Pina ended by saying, it's an exceptional thing that we're doing here. Keep sharing. And I just want to underscore this idea of what we're doing with the Soft and Life Skills Series Conference with the YoPro Global Foundation. We are committed to helping and advancing persons' empowerment through access to information, training, coaching. And ladies and gentlemen, it's an exceptional opportunity to have you here in this audience. And of course, it sets us up real nicely for our final presenter, which will be speaking on the topic of essentially the pain, the price of dignity, a journey in corporate America. We've been hearing so far about changing careers and how it is that you're leverage relationships and genuine, I won't even say networking, but building relations with people. But the true reality is that there is a space for the environment to be hard. And it's so rushed with preferential treatment and perhaps discrimination, as one person said, what if my mentor just as a rough around the edges? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's incredibly so fitting that we move on to another speaker who describes and says that her journey is one on meritocracy, where she roughs through this environment of preferential treatment and discrimination and thrived in a new environment where there's respect for the individual. That is the mission. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Miss Stacia Morris. I'm going to be introducing her. She's the author of Teen Money 101 and the founder of Your Money Track. As we see the exception of the banner in her background and in her name, she was a post-MBA certificate in accounting, an MBA from Pace University, and from the UWI, our university, where she's a college track star. She's so multi-talented. She holds a financial and insurance certifications and works as a financial advisor. At the moment, ladies and gentlemen, she's involved in global leasing, financing, consulting, information technology. Just a variety. Her work, ladies and gentlemen, extends the no bound. She's smiling, she's ready. And persons, Stacia, they are ready for the presentation. Anytime you're ready, thank you for being with us so far.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I must thank this platform. I must thank Ty, Karina, and Celia, because I was on this platform last year when you started this platform. So thank you for inviting me back. Since I spoke last year, you guys have opened just a flow of opportunities for me to speak. And actually, this is the 8th time from October to October that I have been on a University of the West Indies platform. So I just quickly tell you what I've spoken on. Last year, I spoke on Ready, Set, Reinvent. And if the teacher who was on last night, she wants to shift careers, if she wants to talk to me, that's fine, because I can tell her how I reinvented myself over and over again. I also spoke twice on the CEO of Your Finances. I spoke on mentoring. I spoke on the pain and the price of this same topic, but from a managerial perspective. And I spoke for 3 hours. We're not going to speak for 3 hours tonight, but thank you guys who gave me back some of your time. And Karina, I know you'd be happy. I'm going to use those guys' time. Stay with me, everybody. We're going to have a good ride tonight. I also was featured on the inaugural Global Day, and I also spoke to commuting students about financial literacy. Then I've been on the PACE platform, and today is a really good day for me. It's a once in a lifetime day, because at 12 noon today, I was on the PACE University platform. Now I'm on your platform, UWI. And it never happens. It's a once in a lifetime that I would be on my 2 alma maters platform on the same day. So when I'm done tonight, I know I am gonna just rest tomorrow. I've spoken to Power to Fly, and last couple of weeks, I was on the platform talking to the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Commerce and Industry, et cetera, et cetera. I've literally done about 14 speeches since last October, and I have 6 more calendar for the rest of the year. So Ty, Karina, Celia, you guys just opened an avalanche for me. Now, before I go into my speech, I want to congratulate my country, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is our 24th independence anniversary. So those Vincentians who are listening to me, I want to say congratulations. And I'm just going to go into my presentation right now. This presentation I have done about 4 or 5 times. I did this presentation in the late 1990s, in the early 2000s, and it's just amazing and could be distressing that this presentation is still very, very, very appropriate today. I'm going to talk to you about preparing, because what I have been through, I was prepared for it. Throughout our lives, we meet situations and we just didn't realize that we were being prepared for these situations. I was prepared for the situations that existed, that I went through. So I'm going to talk about preparing. Then I'm going to just do a fast words and situations. And then I am going to go slowly and go through one scenario with you. Then we can get to my pain, the pain. I'll walk through the pain. Then we talk about price and survival. And then we have Q&A. And Shema, at some time, I'm going to ask you to allow me to share. Give me permission to share. I'm going to talk first, and then I'm going to share. So who am I? As Shema said, I have a lot of education. Before all that education came a person, came a daughter of a headmaster and a nurse, and we lived in St. Vincent the Grenadines. So, you know, in those small communities, you're the headmaster's daughter, you're the nurse's daughter, everybody know you. It's difficult when you become a teenager and you go dating, and before you get home, your mom knew who you were seeing or who you walked home with or whatever. So that was how I grew up, a nice community that really nurtured us. My dad was a historian. My dad loved war history. My dad talked to us all the time that life was a battle. Now, you grow up hearing that life was a battle. He didn't say we had to win, but we knew we had to win. And my dad's favorite battle was Jutland, and his nickname was Jutland. His favorite battle was the Battle of Jutland. His nickname was Jutland, and I expect you to remember all of this stuff. And his most favorite wartime hero was Winston Churchill. Please remember that. I'm going to come back and ask you questions on that. So, definitions. What is pain? Pain is discomfort. What is price? We know we just talked about money. We should know about money. We should budget our money. Price is the price, the money given in payment. And what's dignity? To us, I think all of us in the Caribbean, we grew up as dignified people. We grew up in our communities where we are respected. As long as you respect other people, you're respected. So coming to the US, I expected that I would be taught with dignity, and sometimes it was, but most of the times I had to fight for my dignity. So to really set the stage tonight, I'm going to read to you a Martin Luther King's quote, where Martin Luther King talked about tough-mindedness and tender-heartedness. And then he said, we should avoid the complacency and the do-nothingness, do-nothingism of a soft-minded person and not be a bitter person. So let's keep this in mind. We are not supposed to be complacent. We are not supposed to do nothing. We're supposed to stay soft-hearted. We're supposed to stay soft-hearted and tough-minded. Okay? Soft-hearted, tough-minded, not be complacent, and do something. So from this story I'm going to talk to you about, walk you through some of my life. I have never been complacent. I have never not said or not fought. My dad told me life was a battle. So, you know, what did I expect when I come to the US? That it would be easy? I probably had no expectations, but I was surprised anyway. So preparing, as I said, upbringing, my parents, my mother was never satisfied even with 100% if you brought home 100%. She would have fitted really nicely in the US system where you can get 102% or 104%. So my mother, my father, my education. So I came really well prepared. Then I was a track athlete. I ran 100 track. And if you're a track athlete, you know, you got to win. And I can tell you stories about myself not walking home with my friends after school because we were competitors. We were athletic competitors. So during the sports season, I would go the long way home and not walk the shortcut with my friends because I was super competitive. So as I talk tonight, I want you to see things through my eyes, understand my feelings, and then I am going to talk about color. I'm specifically going to talk about color and ethnicity and gender, because that would show you as I go through that it came from all sides, from everybody. And then we're going to talk about how I remain resilient. So I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to hit you with some situations. I'm going to say person, situation, and what the words were. When I started IBM, a Black secretary, she wanted to bring me updated with what was happening, and she talked to me about the lay of the land. Then a colleague pointed out to me that I should tone down because most of my colleagues had not gone to college and they had not traveled. And I traveled a lot, and I took, you know, I would go traveling on weekends. And oh, by the way, before I came to the US, I took a Nirvana stay. I stopped off in the Bahamas, worked for tax-free dollars, and literally traveled the whole area before I came here to do my master's degree. So I expected, you know, that people had traveled like anything. I was told literally not to talk that much about my travels or what I had done with my life. Tone it down. A male colleague said to me very early in my IBM career, and I'm talking about IBM, 18 years of IBM, over 20. The other companies were even worse, but you have to wait for my book to hear the rest of this. Somebody at IBM said to me early on, "You are so driven. Are you from the Caribbean?" So here we are stereotyped that you're not supposed to be driven. You're supposed to just take things as they flow. Then another day, a lady said to me, "You're so nice to secretaries. That's because you were a secretary." Now, there's nothing wrong with being a secretary. What's wrong is that you assume the assumption that if you're a Black person and you're nice to secretaries, you had to have been a secretary. Then a situation where my executive sent me to meet a Black executive so that I can get some career coaching from her. She looked at me, she sat on her wrong table, and I should tell you, I had a thing about having a wrong table in my office, and today I have a wrong table. So this lady sat at her wrong table, and she bopped, and she said to me, "You are doing quite well. Well, tell me, why did I leave the Caribbean, come here, study, leave my friends and some family members, come here to study, to do quite well?" No, that lady never saw me again as a potential person who I wanted a mentor then. She never saw me. I went to California to integrate some of IBM leasing technologies into the Stanford company. We had bought another company in California, so I went out to understand their structure and bring it back here. And an Indian woman said to me, "Whose administrative secretary are you?" Now, Indian, Black, she see me, I come there, and I could not be in charge of the area. I had to be supporting somebody. Continuing. I don't have my college degrees in my work office. I never had when I was at IBM. So one day I was in a business meeting and a guy said to me, "Do you have any college?" Then a Jewish male said to me, my modus operandi on the job when I worked for IBM was to change jobs every 18 months. So I'd get a job, I'd get up to speed in 6 months, give them back another 6 months on that job. And then the next 6 months, I'm talking to management about getting me to my next level. And oh, by the way, every time I was promoted, I asked for the job description of the next level until I got to the level where there was no job description, but it was relationships, who knew you, what you were doing. So I got promoted to a level, and a Jewish guy said to me, why don't you rest now? Why don't you calm down and stop rocking the boat? I was asking for my just rewards, but it was looked at as if I was rocking the boat. Another Jewish woman said to me, this was a Jewish guy, then a Jewish woman said to me, the situation was I was transferred into her area and she was supposed to coach me. We were co-leads in the area now. And she said to me, you are bright enough to figure it out. Refuse to coach me. So here's where I use my skills. When I joined IBM, I was a computer programmer. Here I was using my accounting and finance skills. And what I did, I got the computer programmers to give me a printout of the program. And I had lunch with the main programmer and I had him walk me through everything. I literally kept copies of the code in my desk because I knew the methodology and I knew the computer programs. Here's another one. The area I was in was integrated into the front end. I was working in leasing, the back of lease when the stuff came back off lease. I was the pricing person dealing with that. They integrated the back end with the front end and they weren't going to carry me down to the front end. They transferred me to a guy who was an administrative second line manager. This guy was Black, but I knew he was going to do nothing for me. Every month when he gave gifts, monetary gifts for competency, 2 white women always were they alternated monthly. I knew this guy was going to do nothing for me. So I went over his head to the vice president and I said, I do not want to be moved. I want to take my back-end leasing methodologies I want to go with the job. Well, management decided that I would go with the job, but nobody told me. So my name showed up on an organization chart in the new area. I didn't know. I found out, and when I went to management and said, well, how did this happen? This shouldn't happen. Yes, I'm getting what I asked for, but somebody should have told me. They tried to blame the fact that I knew on the Black secretary. They said the Black secretary was the one who told me. Didn't happen. My name showed up on an organization chart. Then I was a hard worker, worked for lots of hours, ran into another Black manager. And she told me one day that there weren't many white men around who were gonna adopt a Black child, which really meant no matter how hard I worked, I wasn't gonna get into those executive ranks because there were not many white men who wanted to adopt a Black woman. And oh, by the way, she was adopted. Then I ran into a white executive who I thought maybe a white woman executive, maybe get some coaching there. She told me I only saw Black and white. I did not see enough grays. So what that meant is that she was not going to adopt me because I just saw things differently. I am supposed to see grays. Then this was the last time I spoke about this. My siblings were shocked because I never told them this. But one day, I literally packed up my younger sister's pictures and I took them home. I had been talking to another white manager outside of my office about career paths. And she looked at my pictures on my desk and she said, oh, but aren't those your children? She literally thought that I was about 10 years older than I was then. And more or less, if I had these older children, why would I want a career? Assumptions, ageism. Next one, and everybody on this platform would laugh at this one. I had a white guy who worked for me. He was short. And he came to me one day and we were having a chat. And he said, You would not believe how difficult it is for a short white guy in this company. I laughed at him and I said, look at me. I'm a tall Black woman. What do you think? The next thing I want to mention is a white system manager said to me one day, why aren't you a manager? And I said to her, it's because I'm Black. And she turned all colors. Next one, and I'm hitting you with these, and then I get to one scenario. The same Jewish lady who refused to tutor me when I got to the new job, she would go around saying every day, getting people together for lunch. And she would say, lunch, lunch, lunch. And she would miss my office. I was never invited to lunch. And yes, I said I was never invited to lunch, but a Canadian guy invited me to lunch. And the only reason why he invited me to lunch was because he needed to pick my brains. When I found that out, well, we didn't do lunch. So I continue, we have a couple more. A white male colleague said to me one day that I behaved like a prima donna. What I didn't know then was that my name means queen. And, you know, if I behave like a queen, well, that's because that's what my name means. Then I heard that other males, white males, thought I partied all weekend. They thought I went to the city. You're a Black woman, and single, you're supposed to be partying all weekend. So I want to link the next two together, and then I want to get to the other one, last one in the series. Linking this together, I went to a marketing class run by a white woman. I was supposed to present leasing methodology during the marketing seminars, but I want to hear the marketing, I want to hear everything. Similar, Shema, I came onto the platform yesterday to hear everybody. Tonight I was early to hear everybody. Tomorrow I'm on your platform again. When I'm a part of something, I want to hear the progression. I want to be part of it. I went to be part of this, and the woman said to me, oh, there's no room for you right now. Why don't you come back later? Well, I never went back later. My ego wouldn't have me going back later. Then they reported temporarily to a white woman. She called me to see her, and I went to her office, and she had another white woman in her office, and she allowed the woman to step across the door and close the door in my face. This is how we were treated. Now, I linked these two together because these two were walked out of the company because they did illegal things. So God does not like horrible. This one was horrible. Don't know why my phone is ringing. The other thing, Shema, could you wave if you're hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, so I see my call in the background. Okay, one Brazilian guy said to me once, and everybody would love this, he told me I had 3 strikes against me. I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I speak funny. So I had extra stuff. I got heard from another Latin American colleague. We were in a meeting once in Stamford, Connecticut, and he asked me where he should find the coffee. Probably thought I was the coffee person. I was the maid. Then Black male. I got it from Black males also. Black male told me I'd never be promoted upwards. When he met me, we were on the same level, and he couldn't imagine I'd be promoted above him, and I was. Made sure I was. Then 2 Black women. Told you I'd tell you, everybody came, people can come at you, all colors. They told me once that I really wasn't loved on my job. Senior management just liked the fact that I could work, and they were using me. Well, hello, I used them too. I traveled a lot with IBM, and everywhere I traveled, I spent weekends and I saw the world. I saw all of Latin America, saw some of Europe at their expense. So they were using my expertise, and I was learning, and I was traveling. So I want to get to this one, because what I've unpacked is some of what I went through. And believe me, there is a lot. There's a lot more I can mention, but I think everybody has heard enough and felt my pain and what I went through. One day, I was coming down the spiral staircase at work to see my two younger sisters. And as I came down the staircase, and I can remember what I had on, I always made sure I look good women. And I sew, so I make my own clothes so I always make sure. So because people see you, the first thing people see is how you look, especially when you're the only Black woman on a platform in an office, is how you look. Before you open your mouth and they realize you speak funny and you're not from here, is how you look. So I kind of came down the staircase, and my younger sister said to me, wow, you walk down the staircase as if you own this place. And I calmly said to her, yes, I own this place. I work late, go to work early, leave late. I own this place. So even though you're constantly slammed, and I get to my survival, what made me survive, but I first told you how I grew up, then who I am, and these were the challenges. Now, the last time I spoke on this topic, I mentioned 3 scenarios. Tonight, I'm only going to do one scenario. And I'm going to ask you to follow me on this scenario. And when I'm done, as we know, Shema, when I'm done, we're going to have Q&A. So this scenario, you have to follow me. It's kind of, it waves, but we get there. We get there finally. I told you I had my modus operandi for working through IBM was contributing and then expecting promotions and movements. Well, I had an 18-month was my target. So 1 year, my 18-month when I was supposed to start discussing my promotability and just making sure I get promoted on time, I expected to start in July. But I was called into my boss's office in April, and he told me I was going to be promoted. And I'm like, wow. But after saying wow, I realized that there was something smelly there. There was something not kosher. So I asked him, and this was one of the most honest guys I worked with. White guy, he's one of my supporters. You have to have some supporters. You have to have people in the room. He knew I worked hard. He knew I knew my stuff. He had a PhD in economics. I had a first degree in economics. So we can talk. He told me I carry my color on my sleeve, and I would tell him he made me do it. So we would trade babs at each other. So when he told me I was being promoted early, I'm like, something is fishy. What happened? What happened was management was bringing in a white lady into the group. She had no leasing background, but she had a higher level than me. But I was so pleased that I had literally taught these people how to treat me. I taught management how to treat me. They knew if they brought in this girl, this lady, at a higher level than me, we were gonna claim the D word. And IBMers and HR and IBM, they never want to hear the discrimination word. But I have used it. I've used it at choice occasions, not generically, at choice occasions. I was going to use it this time, but they knew what I would have done, so they promoted me earlier. Wow, that was good. Continually in the same department, I was moved after contributing to that department, and I was doing a worldwide system. After we successfully rolled it out, I moved on to another area. And in this area, there were no minorities. So same manager came to me and he said, we want to announce that we're moving you and promoting you into this area. I said, you can't. It's a big thing when the director or vice president have their quarterly meetings for them to say, oh, we're doing this, oh, we're doing that. And it's so nice if you have a Black person to show, especially a Black woman to show that we're moving her along. I said, no, you can't announce. He said, why? I said, I sit in a cubicle, a very nice cubicle, one of the best cubicles, overlooking the Long Island Sound. I sit in a cubicle, but you cannot promote me or announce my promotion until I get a window office. An office. I said office, not window. And I went home, and usually before then, I used to keep the stress on my shoulders. And before I would have gone home with that stress, I didn't that night. I left the stress on my manager. I took a stress class which said, put the stress back on the person. Oh, I was so glad to put the stress back on him. I went home. Here is the director wanting to announce. This manager would have to go tell the director, you can't announce because Stacia doesn't agree. I wanted an office. Next morning, I got to work early, and my manager comes tripping down the hall, smiling away. And I'm like, well, what happened? Oh, we got you an office. I said, yes, you can announce. I should have gone to look at the office first. When I went to see the office, they cleared out the copier room, and it had no windows. There was a door, but no windows. So I got caught there. They announced, because I had said you can announce, door with no windows. The story continues. I sat in my office with a door, no windows, and my friends would pass up. This lady would pass up and down, call lunch, and wouldn't invite me to lunch. All of the other people at my level had offices with windows. There was a situation. There was a director's office down the hall from me, and it had one wall. Everything was glass, one wall. It was above my pay grade, but I asked for it. I asked for it. Nobody said yes. Nobody said no. People do not like saying no to me. I was on one of the most critical projects. You say no more to me. You say no to me, something bad may happen. I may just not do the project or get sick or something. So I spied the office and they wouldn't give it to me. I was on my way to the Bahamas for 2 weeks vacation. I put a plan in place. The last Friday night I was there, I made sure I was the last person in the office, in the building, on that floor. I had packed up all my books. I took my tower laptop, those old desktops. I took that, wheel it down on a chair to the new office. I actually set up the office, put my name in the name slot. I went to the secretary's bay and I wrote my name on that slot in ink, and I went off to vacation. Now you may say I'm really hard-nosed. I did the squat. I used the word settled. Went off on vacation, but I'm coming back. I'm human. I'm coming back, and the first day back at work, I am driving into work in trepidation. My gosh, where am I sitting? Did they move me? What happened? Where do I go? Well, I tripped into work, confident self. I'm shivering inside, but I'm walking confidently. Went down to the office. My name was still in the name slot. The office was still mine. I literally stayed in that office for 3.5 years. Management did not recognize the fact that I had moved. People kind of turned a blind eye. Nobody approached me and said, you shouldn't have moved, this isn't your office. However, if they wanted to see me, they came to see me in what was now my office where I sat. So story, that's the scenario I want to walk you through on how I manage myself. There are other stories on me managing. So I would stop on that story and I would go into now the pain, the price. I just talked to you about the pain of my dignity, and I'm going to talk to you now on the price. So I'm going to share my screen, and this one I'm going to walk you through. And I want to see questions coming, please. Have questions coming. So let me do the current slide. Okay, so you heard my pain. Now, price. I want to know if you can put a price on consistent and persistent pain. If you can put a financial price, a physical price, mental and spiritual. Financial inequity, yes, I think we can come up with something. By underpaying me for years, and we know in the US we are underpaid, Black women are very much underpaid, probably 58 cents on the dollar for white men. So that underpayment impacted my retirement funds, my social security dollars. Oh, it's 54 cents, not 58, wow. It's even underpaid less than I thought. So I want to read, this is now physical and mental health. Now, if I go back to price, financial price, maybe, you know, the financial people and economists who are listening, you would say you can take the money I was underpaid for so many years, we can increase it for inflation and future value the money, and we can come to a financial price. What about physical? I want to read to you from a sociologist, David Williams, and he happens to be a St. Lucian. And he says, racism is having devastating effects on Black America's physical and mental health. And this is according to him. And this is where I found the quote, and I actually heard him. So physically and mentally, we are being impacted. On the mental health side, I swing back to physical just now. I was usually the only Black person, and I have to say Black, I said Black, woman in a room. And we heard today about the imposter syndrome. I never felt like an imposter. Yes, I felt lonely, and I felt I always had to speak up. I always had to validate myself. I felt on a daily basis, I had to validate myself. And a spiritual health, there's really no price. So we have to build up our spiritual base. And I tell you, on my way to work every day, I had the songs the spiritual hymns and songs that I sang, and that helped to survive, that helped. But on a daily basis, you had to prove yourself on a daily basis. And we have corporate challenges, particularly for Black women and Black men. So I talk on the Black woman side. We do not have sponsors. We do not have leaders who would sit in the back room and talk about us. And we can't fix it, but we have to stay in the game. And we have to survive. On a physical level, for me, one day I was driving home from work, and I didn't see the blue car coming towards me, and I was making a left turn. It's a good thing the car coming towards me saw me and was able to stop. That was bad, but that wasn't the worst. Another day, I was at work and I literally blanked out because I was working 12, 14-hour days to get this project done. I had to be driven home. And people who know me know that I myself am driven. So when on the weekend, I didn't have 2 consecutive thoughts. I couldn't read, I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't sew. I mean, I just needed to recover. And the way I recovered when I went back to work, I had a pact with my manager. Anytime I felt overwhelmed, I would go to the gym, and on Friday mornings before going to work, I played tennis with some friends. So I got some physical activity going and got me ready for the state of work. My survival was based on my background and my resilience. Support system, I had supporting colleagues, even though I had these people who said really stupid things. I had supporting colleagues, and I make sure I'm educated and continuous. I'm a continuous learner. And if you hear me on this platform, I cheerlead myself, because if you don't cheerlead yourself, who would do it for you, especially when you're the only one? I was known for my business and IT and spreadsheeting skills, and I cheerleaded myself. I had a sponsor. I had a sponsor who told me, same guy who promoted me earlier, he told me that even though I hadn't gone to an Ivy League college, I could do the work. And I made sure that I did the work. You don't throw out a challenge like that to an ex-athlete, somebody who's as competitive as I am, and you know, I got to show that I can do it. So I did it. I'm creative, I'm solution oriented. I am intentional, focused, and strategic. I would sit and I'd say, okay, in the next couple of months, here's where I want to go. And I would let people know. So I took risk, and the next thing I spoke up. I spoke up. I had to speak up because I had to when I was growing up an athlete in St. Vincent, I remember a cousin of mine who was an athlete also. And he said to me, whatever you do, make sure you can look yourself in the mirror. If I never spoke up, I could not look myself in the mirror. I had to speak up. And if I didn't speak up, I would have to. I don't have a dog. I don't have anybody to kick when I come home. Wouldn't kick a person, but I thought once of getting a punching bag and getting some boxing gloves just to get that aggression out. Today, my siblings say, I really get my aggression out by cleaning my garage where I have all my books from all the jobs I've done and everything else. I confirm myself daily, particularly during COVID. When you get up, you have to say, you know, you spend so much time alone, you have to affirm yourself, confirm yourself that, hey, I'm doing good today. I'm doing good today. And I give benefits to my siblings. I have no limits, and I set expectations, and I work hard. I have fun also. I try to find a balance. Some people, if my siblings are here, they would laugh, but I'm very authentic. I may not have a balance, I'm very authentic. Here are my tips for you, and then I give you my 10 best. Be resilient, have a support system, educate yourself. So most of what I've said, cheerlead, consistency, intention, focus, etc. What I've added here and highlighted is to take a psychology course. I never took one. I always felt, and I know I should take a psychology course sometime. And I tell you why. I am brash, hard-nosed. I'd go into my director's office and I'd say, you did this, you did that. I work for a woman, this is the one who told me that I wouldn't get a godfather. She was a psychologist and then she became a lawyer. She would go into the director's office and she would say, help me understand why you did this. Now she would go in softly, but she was really vicious. I would go in with my tough-minded self, but I was soft-hearted and tender-hearted. But so I need a psychology course. If anybody's listening out there, if you ever have a chance, and I always plan to take one. One of these days, I'd go online and I'd find a psychology course. So here are my 10 takeaways in no particular order, but I put faith first. Have faith. Without faith, I wouldn't be able to hold on. I have to have faith. Have a support system. I tell you about a support person I had on my job. I have to tell you about this guy. You know, sometimes when you feel that everything is coming at you that's bad, all the harsh words you heard, all of the discriminatory stuff from every side, from Black women, white women, Black men, white men, Jewish guys, Indians, etc. I had a friend. Whenever I felt that I needed to speak up, I would go to him and I would say to him, and this was a Chinese guy, and you know Chinese people don't, as a rule, speak up or talk much. I would go to him and I'd say, am I making this bigger than it is? And then most of the time we worked on, our office was on a little rock with lots of boats in the harbor, and we would take a walk. And every time he sees me and I said, take a walk with me, he knows I have a problem. And he would get up and he'd take a walk with me. And we'd discuss whatever it was. And if he tells me that I'm overacting, I trusted him so much that I would go back and take the appropriate, maybe calm steps and not go beat up somebody or something like that. So have a support system, have people you trust. Take something away from every job you do, whether you love it or you hate it. Take something away. I've worked for companies that I hated, and I took some things, and in some cases, I took people with me. Understand your building blocks, always plan, have some contingencies, set expectations, plan, communicate, ask. You gotta ask. Nobody knows what's in your heart unless you ask and you say, this is what I want. And when you say this is what I want, you got to be able to back it up and walk towards it. Take a psychology course, continuous education, have a sponsor champion, and be authentic. You got to know who you are, be yourself everywhere. For example, let me just give you a segue. A lady just contacted me on LinkedIn. She had worked for me about 4 years ago when I was a director at a consulting company. Now she works for Microsoft. And I had given her a copy of my book, Teen Money 101, that I wrote after working with, I actually worked with JA and was on the JA board in Connecticut. Then I wrote a book called Teen Money 101. I gave this lady's daughter a copy and copies for a class in Texas. 4 years later, she has a big job at Microsoft and she wants to work with me in some capacity. So just be yourself and give back and be nice and kind, tough-minded, tender-hearted. So today, instead of blowing in the wind, I'm like an olive tree and I think I'm flourishing. And this is all based on my parents who gave me wings to fly, my siblings who are the wind beneath my wings, my athletic ability, my athletic, all that training, I gotta go win. Education, I'm a continuous learner, and I literally feel I can do all things, particularly today with YouTube. When I want to change that laptop battery and I don't know where to find it, I go on YouTube. So can do everything. And a lot of faith. So I want to end again with Martin Luther King's quote, be tough-minded and tender-hearted. Do not be complacent, avoid complacency, and avoid the do-nothing-ism of the soft-minded and the bitterness of the hard-hearted. For as you probably can hear from my voice, been through all this stuff, I am not bitter. And then next, and I should tell you before I read this, that my eldest sibling has a problem with this. I think that my father would say that I have replaced Winston Churchill as his most favorite warrior. My siblings are so competitive. My dad has been dead for over 20 years, but yet still my older sister probably thought that he would say it's her. She had a rough time at her job. She rose to the top at the Bronx VA hospital. So she probably thought that she owns this, if we're giving away a plaque here for my dad's favorite warrior, I think my sister thinks she deserves it. So time for action. Call to action, be your authentic self, stop running on a treadmill, stop doing the same thing over and over, and climb the ladder. Questions?
Wow, wow, wow. I was trying to write down notes every time she's skipping the slide, and I'm telling you, you've delivered so much, Stacia. You said there at the end that I've just been flourishing, and I think you can tell just one person in the chat who are already saying, not even more than excellent, they're already saying what a warrior, or what a queen, and it's absolutely exceptional, Miss Morris. And for persons who wish to hear more, she's currently sharing her contact information.
I'm sharing my contact.
Right, our previous presenter told you about find the helpers, hashtag find the helpers, whether it's LinkedIn or otherwise, ladies and gentlemen. Just a reminder, you can start to put your questions together either in the chat or after raising your hand and indicated for exceptional presenter. Miss Stacia Morris has provided to us a story of vigor and fortitude and rising and going against all those challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been served a treat. I just want to just pose a question just to prompt everyone in the meanwhile. You know, earlier you posted one of the slides that talked about the challenges that corporate persons experience. And I remember even the person that told you there's 3 things against you, you're woman, you're Caribbean, you're Black. And I want to ultimately ask though, as someone says they didn't catch the email, if you could start sharing it again.
I'd share that stuff again.
Right. I want to ask ultimately, for a young person watching here, you know, oftentimes we hear a lot about these things and they might tell you that, but Stacia, what if I'm not as, you know, strong-willed, I don't have that warrior spirit yet, and you know, when I'm just starting off my first job, you know, it might be so hard to kind of be able to step out so much and to say, you know, you were wearing away at your meritocracy and your hard work. What do you say to those persons who feel like they're working hard, but this discrimination is getting to them and bringing down their morale. What do you say to those persons?
I would say, first of all, if you could find one, and in my days, I couldn't find one, not that I look for one, but if you could find somebody, a mentor, somebody who can talk to you, I would say most young people today need mentors. And if you can find a mentor, and oh, by the way, I think I'd throw it out to everybody. Tonight is my mentor night. Tonight is my give back night. I have a group I call Young Professional Exchange. And I have people from Jamaica, people from St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Brooklyn, and they come on. We do 1 week, we do job search and job discussion and job leads. And we talk about your 90-second speech, your cover letter, your resume. I do mock interviews with my young people. And I have people in their mid-40s. And then the next week we do entrepreneurship, because I found a lot of young people are interested in being entrepreneurs. And I talk to my young people about multiple sources of income. So you do your full-time job during the week, and then on weekends or nights or whatever, you do something, especially today on the internet. You can do so many things on the internet. So I would tell that young person to try to find a mentor who can guide you through. I have a speech, Shema, that I just did for St. Kitts One Story. I adopted a young Jamaican woman about 18 years ago. She she was going to UConn. She had 3 part-time jobs. Her mother never came home because her mother lived in with the job she was doing. And when this girl got home, she had 3 sisters to help take care of. And oh, by the way, when the mother had the children here, she sent them back to Jamaica, but she forgot to send money to keep these kids. And yes, and these kids grew up in poverty. And in a matter of 17, 18 years, this young woman has broken the vicious cycle of poverty. She works with a big Fortune 500 company. She takes care of the internet, the interface between the internet and the company's website. She owns that firewall. She makes a nice salary. She has a nice house. She just has a lot of stuff. And she credits me for mentoring her, but I credit her for listening. And we just had Casey talk about budgets. She stuck on a budget. We had done the right things. So I would say that young person needs a mentor. If you can find a mentor, you either have it in you, because I had it in me, instilled by my parents, but I didn't mention, I have 6 siblings. And they're the wind beneath my wings. They're
Right.
very challenging. We are very competitive, but they're they make up my wind.
All right, thank you. And we have an next question here from Nana. I just thank everyone for their questions coming in. That says, you mentioned that you had your support system, and that was one of the things you listed as something that they could possibly do. But what Nana is asking, what do you do? How do you survive at a workplace where it's a little bit smaller firm, so everyone kind of stick to their own little circle and groups, you know, because they have a racial or social background. When they try to spark a conversation, they're ignored, or overhearing them making jokes about their accent, speech impediment, which, you know, will obviously make anyone feel isolated and deteriorates their mental health. I know you said find a mentor, but what do you just this person that they're ignored, or they hear that jokes over the background? How do you deal with that kind of environment while trying to work?
Yeah, until I open my mouth and let people know that I have a voice and I need to be heard, I had that same thing where people would talk over you or just not listen to you. So I would say, be the best you can be at what you do and find your voice. And even if you have to tell people, and I learned when I just came to this country, Working Woman was this magazine that I read all the time. And for those of you who have seen me on this platform and other platform, I wear red, because for me, red is the power woman's color. So every time I talk, I wear red. I wear red. So I found my voice. You got to find your voice. And if you don't have a support system within work, find somebody, maybe in the church you go to, or find somebody. You have to start talking. You have to start talking. You have to believe in yourself, whatever gives you that belief. And believe me, the person you see now, I have bluffed a couple of times. I went to a meeting one night where they were talking about treasury stuff that I knew nothing about. On my way home, I stopped in the library. By the next day, and today you don't even have to go to the library. Everything is on the internet. So find your niche, find what you're good at, something you're good at, and start talking.
All right, thank you. And I love that you actually said that, because it's really allowed us to understand this concept of, I've heard there's a comment here in the chat from Katie and Daly that says that she's experienced the same kind of, experience working in Canada, being a Black person working in Canada. Like she would go to a Zoom, an online meeting, a physical meeting, and she turns on her camera in the Zoom meeting. There's a jobless face expression. It's like, oh, wow, I can't believe that she's Black. And then this transcends nicely into a question that Kevin Hoyle asked in terms of how do you, take care of this mental health? I heard you say that open your mouth and find that voice. But for persons who are at this different stage of development, like you said, before they get to that stage, how do you deal with that discrimination? Is therapy a good way? Would you advise that for them as well as a possible route?
Well, growing up in the Caribbean, we never believe in therapy. So I took on the stress, and there are different reasons why I took on stress. And I went back, I would take home the stress, but it's a good thing. Like I say, I have a big family, so there are people who knock stuff off and chat with, etc. But you can take on the stress, you can take home the stress, and it can build in you, and it's not good. I knew I needed a stress class, and IBM at that time offered a lot of behavioral type courses that you can go to in the evenings, etc. So find something, if you can find a stress class on the web, on the internet or something. Find a stress class, find a trusted person. I just mentioned to you my Chinese friend who was my trusted buffer. He would tell me when I was blowing things out of the water, or if I was hearing smoke, or if things were smoking, or if it was fire. He would differentiate for me. So find somebody. There are people out there. Believe me, there are people out there. I had my independent self when I thought I could do it on my own, but I had white supporters, I had Black supporters, I had people who made me look good on the job, so find your person or your persons.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if our previous presenter is in here, but hashtag find the helpers, find the persons, and continue. You just spoke a while ago about how it is trying to find a stress class, find just like, you had that friend who helped you differentiate between fire and whatever. And I think that goes into, if I can add on to that, I know you said that a while ago, I've got a question that asks if she can add on to anything else she could share just about managing that workload or stress. I know you said you had that one person, but is there anything else you think could help? Or just your workload when that adds on? Because a lot of times I can understand it's a lot of these is just compounding on top of each other.
Well, we know that we have to work harder. We know that. So I knew it was a given that I had to be the most educated on my team, the most read. I read every Business Week, every Fortune magazine, every Forbes magazine. I was on top of everything. I was able to talk with my boss who had a PhD in economics, and he refused to talk to people who didn't have a master's degree. So, so you work in those environments, and you gotta, I'm using the Army stuff, but you gotta be the best you can be. You gotta be prepared. You got to work hard. I remember one midnight, I found a big error in an assumption I was presenting the next day. You think I slept? No, I had to fix, and it was those days when you made those files, you guys are probably too young for those file things. Now we use PowerPoint and you can change on the fly, but so you got to put the time in, and you got to find either within yourself or somebody who can help you get there. Find a mentoring group, find, and I think Karina is on here. So if UWI has a mentoring group, or I'll share my email address. If anybody wants to join my Wednesday night platform, I have quite a few Jamaicans who I've gotten from my mentoring Jamaicans from UWI who appear on my platform. I would, because it's at this stage where you give back, and I see what has happened to people who didn't have what I had. And we had Casey talking just now. He didn't have a dad. I had a dad who was a headmaster, who was our dictionary. We didn't have Google then or anything. We had my dad. We say, hey, Dad, what does this word mean? And we had our mom who was like the sergeant master in the house. So I hope I answered that question. And before we go, I would share my information again.
Yes, but we did. And I just, anyone wonder, just for the purposes of this session, which is, partly in partnership between the YoPro Global International Global Foundation and the UWI Alumni Relations, and that we do have our e-mentorship program. And perhaps, hello, Karina, I'll actually send it in the link before we go out. And as well, Miss Morris's mentorship program, because we want to ensure that not only are you getting practical tips, but as well as space for helping persons as much as possible. And I see the chat right now, Miss Morris.
Did you see one of my mentees had something in the chat?
Yes. I was going to say, I saw a comment here that I think just encapsulates and speaks just what kind of information we get to. I see Renee that has said that one thing she's gotten from you is that, and I absolutely love this comment, and I want to just read it out if anybody just didn't catch it, that it says that what we've gotten essentially that, perhaps God or whoever deity we worship didn't promise us a problem-free life, but he knows what he's doing. Essentially that all of us here and now, we have to make up our minds. I am going to be one of those who win, no exceptions. As Miss Morris says, I'm going to open my mouth. She's absolutely clapping for that comment. If you haven't left here with anything, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to make up my mind. I'm going to be one of those who win, no exceptions. And it's a necessary mindset that perhaps that we can't afford to be situational, and we can't afford that mindset bent, unfortunately, or circumstances. Because what we've been hearing, Miss Morris, is that, listen, your slide was so thorough and exceptional. It's listing out a lot of the issues that persons face. You're a woman, you're Black. Why do you sound like that? But I love how you particularly mentioned that, hello, I had to get to the point where I opened my voice. It wasn't going to come easy. If I needed to have a little support and a person to tell me that, no, this one is good for gaslighting, leave that one alone, that one is fire. And I think for persons wondering here, I think that's a good suggestion there. It's said that, break it down, take a step back, analyze it, and we go through it again. I see there's a comment in the chat here from Nana that says she's often overlooked for promotions, even though she believes she's verbally recognized, and she has to often take on other person's tasks without recognition, and that's unnecessary. That's a thing we could talk about as well. She says that she feels like it's just enough to say, keep me around, but don't go too far enough to promote me. What do you think of this issue? And I think this is, as you spoke about the Caribbean and therapy, I think this is a very current thing in the Caribbean as well. Persons don't feel recognition for their duties and tasks. She said it very nicely. Keep me around, but not enough to promote me. What's your answer to her to overcome this barrier? Do you think that this work ethic and charisma goes hand in hand with just promoting?
So I would ask her if she has ever spoken up, or if she's gone to her management and say, I want to be promoted. Tell me what it takes for me to be promoted. As I said earlier, every time I was promoted, I got the job description for the next level. So I knew what I was working towards. I was very intentional. You have to be intentional. You have to speak up, and you have to say what you want. Nobody gives you. And what I'm saying in the US, I know happens, and I don't know if she probably is from the Caribbean, but, she said she speaks up. She speaks up. I would say get it in writing, get the job description in writing, have weekly or monthly checkpoints, and say, am I doing my job to be promoted? If not, tell me what I need to be doing. So you need to have a continuous discussion.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I love how we've gotten this breakdown here so far. In the earlier presentation, we got a breakdown of just how you get to that point of finding the helpers and establishing relations. And we're getting another indicator here where Miss Morris says that even after you speak up, and understandably, the situation will be different for every other person. If you speak up and you're having that challenge, and I wrote it down a while ago, find the moment she says she's got promoted, she's asked the next level above, what's that requirement? She has set that requirement so she knows what she's working towards. He added on and said, have monthly or regular check-ins about your progress, how you're doing so far against those indicators. And I think that's so exceptional because you know your own accountability meter. You are now just a measure of how you are doing. What I will say to you, Miss Morris, and this is something that has just come out of other conversations throughout this day, is that do you believe, and for the person that are listening, do you believe that this point of keeping your own check of how you are doing against this indicator, how you are performing, if it is that even if you don't get promoted by that company, as we know there are different policies, do you think that this can overall help you in just improving how valuable you may be if you choose to go somewhere else or in your own expertise and field?
Well, think of your mentor framework. I have idea of where I want to go. But if I don't write it down and start making steps towards it, you know, as you feel better when you start doing something. You know, you have to take action. It's on you. In this world, nobody's going to give you anything. So when you have a framework and time and you're intentional and you need to learn this and you need to learn that and you need to show this and you need to show that, you're walking on you have a roadmap. You're walking on your path. So whether or not it's recognized on your job, like you say, take it somewhere else, especially, I don't know if it's the same in the Caribbean, but take it somewhere else. When you look at my background, Shema, I taught in the Caribbean. I was a teacher in the Caribbean. And then when things changed for me, I said, okay, let's go to the Bahamas. And somebody asked where in the Bahamas. I was in New Providence. I love to swim. I swam every day. I had a blue Volkswagen, and in the back of my buggy, I had my tennis sneakers, my volleyball clothes, my book that I was currently reading. I'm always reading. I crochet. And so somebody asked what kept me mentally well. And I talk about my hobbies, playing tennis, playing volleyball, and the things that kept me. So I went to the Bahamas, saved my money while I traveled, and I came to Pace University here to do accounting, which was, I didn't have enough money for accounting, so I switched to information technology, got a job straight out of college before I was done my MBA. IBM hired me, and I moved. So the thing is to be intentional and know what you want. Life changes, plans change, but unless you have something, you don't have something that you can tweak that can change. So you have to be intentional. So I want to answer this question about my mental health. What kept me to my mental health? I'll give you one secret on a hobby, but I've always been active. I joined tennis club. I even played at IBM volleyball. I hate to walk and jog because if you're track athlete, you don't like to jog or walk. What kept me healthy too was my hobbies. I learned to sew at a very early age, and I'm very creative, but I use sewing, and this may sound badly, but this is one of the ways I cope. Every Friday, I cut material. So if I had a bad week, you can imagine what's going through my mind as I'm cutting the material, okay? Every Friday night. And every Saturday morning I sew. And as that needle goes through the fabric, I'm thinking about the people at work. So I'm getting my aggression out that way. So use your hobbies, use your brain, do whatever it takes. I think I'm a mentally healthy person. I have siblings on this call. I have cousins on this call. And I also saw Shelly Ann. I don't know if you saw Shema. Shelly Ann is one of my mentees, and she's on this call also. So some of my mentees are on this call. Because this was very important tonight. So I sent the invitation to my mentees and say, come join me.
No, and that's exceptional because we want persons to continue sharing and to continue looking, because I believe this has been so insightful so far, what you're giving. You know, I would ask that you just continue sharing that last slide again as the persons would have wanted it. As persons are saying, just a powerful presentation. I just want to if we can just come full circle with everything, and as I can put this back in. Earlier, someone had asked that, you know, you seem very assertive, and what if for somebody that's what they want to avoid confrontation? I know since then you've spoken us about the importance of opening your mouth and being intentional. But just what would you say to someone that, what would you say to them on their way to becoming a lot more assertive because they want to avoid confrontation? That's a very key thing there. Now a lot of persons, they want to speak up and they will speak, but not to the point at which they become a problem. What do you say? What do you say for that?
Okay, so let me just find that slide with my information. And what I would say to that is, you can't have everybody happy. Who is most important here? Do you want to go home and be able to sleep? You have to. Sometimes you can't avoid confrontation, or like I say, take a psychology course, and that would teach you how to maybe go around and say, well, why did you do this? And, you know, help me understand. And that lady's favorite term was, help me understand. Now you're asking somebody to help you understand the bad things that they have done. So maybe that's the way that you would want to do it. In my case, I went right to them and I say, you did this. So for example, let me tell you something that was stupidly done to me. And I think everybody got my information right now. You can take a picture of my information. And then I want to share something with you on a course. So I'll come back to you, Shema. I have a CEO of your finances. I did it twice on this platform. And if you want to take a picture of the course, and I do have a UWI coupon if you want to do that. But send me email on Your Life Track or Stacia Morris. Okay, so I want to go back to something that was stupidly done to me. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody. I told you I was really good at doing spreadsheets. We were changing, management was changing the way they paid people. So from a flat salary, they were paying people based on results in the leasing business. So they came to me and asked me if I could do the bridge spreadsheet that would pay people until they got their system ready. And I said, yes, I do the bridge spreadsheet. What they did, and they shouldn't have done, they gave me a listing of everybody's salary to put into that spreadsheet. That guy I told you, the little white guy, short white guy who said how difficult it was being a short white man in IBM, he made $20,000 more than me. This is about 20 years ago or so. He made $20,000 more than me. He worked for me. He had less responsibility. And that's a lot of money. And they showed me, when I saw everybody's salary, I went to the director and I said, you have a problem here. I did that at the end of October. And before Thanksgiving, every minority in that area got a salary increase. I had friends come to me and I couldn't say anything. I had friends come to me and say, wow, I got a salary increase, but that was unexpected, but we were underpaid. And I may even still have the printout. I brought it home. I may still have it in my garage. But those are the things that management would do, stupid, basic things like that. They would share that stuff with you and open it. So I had to go see him. There are lots of things that were done to me and I would go to see him for myself. There are other people who wanted me to join with them, and particularly there were some women who I didn't care for. They didn't work on the job. I didn't respect their work ethics, so I didn't join it. I'm not a teamy thing. I'm going to tell you what you have done for me or against me. So I would say too, I hope I answered that question, but we got to talk. We got to find some way, a nice, calm way. And I smiled a lot. I smiled a lot, but people knew me. My smiles didn't really mean anything. You know, I learned to fake it. I learned to smile a lot.
Right. I think it's so really fantastic, you know, because that was so insightful there. You asked at the beginning. I love how practical you've been as well. Because, you know, you'd have said, you know, honestly, you just can't sometimes avoid the confrontation because, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been with us for over the 2.5 hours coming up now, who is most important? Who does this matter mostly to? It matters mostly to ourselves. And so we have to speak up, you know, hashtag you are intentional, hashtag you know where you wanted to go. And so these are things we have to keep in mind. I saw there was a hand up earlier. I'm not sure if they still want to ask from Keela. I'll invite them now if they wish, or if we don't have any more. Then I believe that would be end of the questions. But
Good night.
Right, there she is.
Perfect. Okay.
It's not really a question. It's probably something adding to what the person wanted and was asking for advice. And before I go ahead, I appreciate very much, and I'm also a warrior. And to that, I tell the in the Caribbean, we have a tendency that if you voice, you are characterized as a troublesome person, a difficult person, and so on. And so many a times our fears inhibit us from voicing. Now, one thing I've learned through my journey of life as well is fear is good when you use it as a cautionary measure. But when fear inhibits you from progressing or achieving your personal goals, then it becomes a toxic measure, because then it's not a powerful emotion. Rather, it's disempowering you. And so I think it is a good measure as of caution, but voicing, because you voice, does not mean that you are difficult. No, I'm not saying that some people are not difficult when they're voicing, but you have to make sure that when you're voicing, you do it in a respectable and strategic manner, voicing and being objective, and not just voicing because you want to rant and rave, which I think is what Stacy did. She seemed to be very strategic, very goal-oriented, very straight to the point. That's not being difficult. That's being assertive, which is totally different. But coming from a woman, that is not necessarily always taken that way.
And Keelia, it's looked at sometimes as not assertive, but aggressive. You couldn't be looked at as aggressive. And I've been—
Worse yet.
I've been told the aggressive word by managers. Managers told me I was aggressive, and
believe me, I've suffered as well. I've been through my pain as well, and I've been given a lot of negative remarks. But that's okay. I like that. I'm comfortable with that.
So we find our comfort level.
Right.
Because you have to live with yourself. As I mentioned earlier, when you got to look in the mirror, and when things happen, you got to look in the mirror and say, did I do the right thing by me? You know, and then you have the global us, but it's basically comes down to you. Yeah.
Right, and I absolutely agree. You know what I love most is about Keela's contributions there is because, and as I see persons just loving it in the chat about true, sometimes aggressive, and as Nana says it, I think it underscores, Stacey, as he said, you were here to the presentation yesterday. It underscores why is it that we're actually here, because we want to, you know, at the end of the day, it's about your journeys, and I said self-discovery yesterday, and it's so fantastic because as we've heard here, truthfully, we oftentimes characterize these persons as difficult and aggressive, but our presenter today has told us that ultimately who matters yourself, and it's about being strategic, smart, knowing where you want to go. She has said that she has given us practical things such as ask at every stage, what are the descriptions for the next level going above? Don't even just wait for evaluations or routine lists for persons to be accountable for you, but tracking your own progress, seeing where you ultimately wanting to go, because the truth is that there are biases and there are things that are just naturally against us, but it's ultimately about how we envision ourselves and where we want to go. The crux here, as Miss Morris is telling us, is to not pretend like these things aren't happening ultimately, but it's to not let it get in the way of your flourishing, her blossoming that she has ultimately done. I see one person that Nana has talked about, it's they really appreciate you and other presenters making yourselves available for investing in others, and they've been searching for this kind of potential direction, this professional direction rather, in the first place. Hashtag find the helpers, everybody, find the helpers. I see Darius is asking us about the recordings, and just a reminder for everyone that, you know, the recordings can be accessed on our YouTube channel, University of West Indies Alumni Online, but it will be accessed as if you can email. I think Karina will send it in the chat shortly at karina.dice@alumni.ua.edu, or I'll type it, and that's the email in which you can get the recordings. But ladies and gentlemen, as I get another comment that says, most of us are bold, that we can try to address these behaviors to try and get us to be strategic. So, Miss Morris, I can just thank you for your time, your expertise, the vigor, the enthusiasm, the fire, the tips. Listen, I said to Mr. Delapida, my paper was full, another page is full again. And listen, I have to note it down, because I think the wealth of knowledge just underscores what it is that we're trying to do with this series, the webinars that, like you said, since last year, it has just exploded. We have, yes. He said earlier, about 90 persons. We went over 100 as we went through your story. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been so fantastic here as we're thanking her again for her time. Just a reminder again that this is not the end. And that's the most impressive thing of this morning. So we're not even finished with the presentations in our conference. And we're going to be continuing on for day 3. Just a reminder, everybody, it's the same link, the same thing again. Join again, push it to your friend, tell them that hello, you know, I stumbled. It was just an accident. It's because my mentor told me to join her session. She's speaking. But it was exceptional, and it's a sign that I needed to be there. Share it with that friend. And another one for tomorrow on day 3, same time, 6 p.m. Jamaica time, 7 EC time. And we'll be here once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. You've been exceptional in the chat, exceptional in the engagement, exceptional. The email is in the chat right there. Karina Dice at alumni.com, at alumni.ue.edu rather. And it's been a pleasure to be your moderator. And Morris is clapping you.
And thank you for staying. A lot of people stayed, so that's really great. Thank you very much for staying.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us here. Have a remarkable rest of your evening. The email is in the chat at the moment.
And thank you, Shema. Great job. Okay.